and out there with the questions that we've had. Even, if we go fact-finding, we want to be able to report to the committee what it was we found out when we did ask those questions.
Well, at this point, we're getting together every week on Tuesdays. So we may need to continue that trend through out of October into November. We'll see how it goes. Just something to think about.
And then other people may have other types of questions that we may not think about that we can
Need a motion to adjourn.
move to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. See you tomorrow night.
What if you had to stop televising your council meetings on your government access channel? What if local high school sports, junior high school spelling bees, or the school board meetings were no longer televised on the educational access channel? And what if community nonprofits, local churches, religious organizations, and individuals could no longer have their programming on the public access channel? That means no more candidate debates, no senior programming, no health shows, no distance learning,
No more police or fire department safety programming.
and no community parades or festivals.
All television programming for and by your community, gone.
And that's exactly what's happening across this country. Public, educational, and government access television
Is at risk because of
massive
lobbying efforts by the cable.
and telephone industries.
Cities and towns across America.
have already lost well over 100 television stations and stand to lose as many as 500 in the next couple of years
There is a solution.
To this loss,
of our important local community media.
The Community Access Preservation Act, or the CAP Act.
The CAP Act will protect and preserve PEG access television so communities like yours can continue to have this valuable local resource.
Here's what the CAP Act can mean for your municipality.
this federal piece of legislation
It's critical to the survival of PG access television.
And communities across this country,
And communities just like yours.
American Community Television is working hard to get the CAP Act passed.
But we need your help to get this legislation passed.
we need you to call or email your congressman
And your senators.
and tell them your community wants and needs PEG access television to stay connected.
We need you to tell them to support the CAP Act.
To learn more about the CAP Act,
Go to the Act Now section.
At acommunitytv.org.
To see what you can do.
the CAP Act preserves and restores PEG access television support without federal, state, or local government money.
Together, we can make sure that our communities continue to have the power to communicate.
These over 5,000 public, educational, and government channels broadcast over 1 million hours of new programming a year.
As a viable source of local information, PEGs help create stronger and more vibrant communities, one of the most important foundations for small and local businesses to thrive.
They educate the public, inform citizens, and provide a platform for talented individuals.
Every year, thousands of law enforcement officers are injured or killed by passing vehicles on our nation's roads and highways. These tragedies don't have to happen. Whenever an emergency vehicle has its lights on, move over away from the emergency vehicle. If you can't change lanes because of traffic, or if you're traveling on a 2-lane road, slow down at least 20 miles per hour below the posted speed limit.
Help protect the officers who protect you. Please move over, and if you can't, then slow down. It's the law.
Thank you and welcome. This meeting is being recorded and televised by Chelmsford Telemedia. If there's anyone else who's planning to record, would you please so indicate at this time?
Molly Lockman, Chelmsford Independent.
Hi, Molly. Sorry? Lowell Sun. Yep, thank you. As you can see, Nick DeSilvio is not with us tonight, and neither is Kathy McWilliams. The first item on the agenda is the consent agenda, the approval of the minutes of September 23rd. Does anyone have any comments, corrections, questions?
Move to approve the consent agenda that includes the regular school committee meeting minutes from September 23rd, 2014.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Oh, good point. Okay, so, yeah, 3-0. And one abstention. Thank you. All right, student representative report. Owen Manasseh.
Hi. So there's been a lot of things going on at the high school the last couple days and things that are coming up. For one, there's SATs this coming Saturday. So it's going to be first time for a lot of juniors and last time for a lot of seniors, both SAT 2s and the subject tests. So it's a great way to kick it off and get all those subject tests and all those standardized test scores in before college, get ready for that, do all the studying. A lot of sports recently. I actually just came back from my soccer game against Tewksbury. We had a huge win, 3-2. We came back, and Tewksbury was #1 in the MVC, so it was a big win. Girls swim team beat Boston Latin 90-87 recently. They're still undefeated, so that's really awesome. Girls volleyball beat North Andover in 4 sets a few days ago. That was last Wednesday, and that was also the night of open house. And I volunteered at open house along with other members of National Honor Society, and it was great. We directed around all the parents to all the different classes. Looked like everything was running smoothly. And then between classes, when no parents were in the hall, a few of us would go look at the gym, check the score of the volleyball game. And it was great. The Tundra, the school fan section was in full form. We're all really excited for the playoffs this fall. It's going to be awesome. Everyone's going to be rowdy. And now I'll turn it over to Monty.
Hi guys. So picture retakes are this Thursday. So in case you were absent or you forgot to smile, get it right. Do it right this time. The Pride Awards for grades 11 and 12 will take place next week on the 15th. The PSATs will take place on October 18th, and that's in 2 weeks, I guess. And it's a good idea for sophomores and juniors to take the PSATs, and that will help you determine how well you'll do on the SAT, so it's a great practice. I myself will be taking the PSATs on that day. And on October 4th, the CHS marching band students performed in URI Band Day, so that's really great.
Yes, that's wonderful. I understand they had quite a good time there.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks very much, guys.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Good news? Then turn it right over to Linda.
Great. So good news, last Monday we had Secretary Malone. He's the Secretary of Education for the state, and he came and he started off with visiting our McCarthy Middle School. He went to Miss Flanagan's classroom. He had made a great relationship with her son Connor, who's out in Tingsboro, and he was very impressed by the literature that the students were reading in that classroom and their engagement. And then we moved on. We were with the school committee. We moved on over to the high school where we met up with Principal Caleri, and there we went around. We saw the Black Box Theater, the new Black Box Theater that's down at the high school. We were in the athletics. We were in the PAC. We were everywhere. So he was very impressed. He loved, especially he saw the nice connection between the early childhood classroom and then the students that were right next door. He thought that was fantastic. So that was really a good visit. The second thing we have is a great collaboration, and it's between Chelmsford Telemedia, Nancy Quinn Harahy at the Harrington Elementary School. She's one of the nurses, and Lynn Rubin, who's a music teacher, and they put together a public service announcement. So this is the Harrington Elementary School students with a public service announcement, and it's going to be right behind you kids, so you might want to give it a little back up.
Soap and water, soap and water, soap and water, soap and water. Wash your hands with soap and water. Wash your hands with soap and water. Toss it on, water flows. Get it nice and warm. Then grab that soap, lather up, scrub up to your arms. Count to 10, count again. Keep those bubbles showing. When you're done, rinse them off. Time to dry and go. If you're washing them, you're gonna keep the germs away. If you're washing them, you're gonna keep the germs away. Soap and water's gonna help you keep the germs away. If you're washing them, you're gonna keep the germs away. Away, hey, 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 hey. Away, hey, hey, hey. Away, hey, 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 hey. Away, hey, hey, hey. Soap and water, soap and water, soap and water, soap and water. Wash your hands with soap and water. Wash your hands with soap and water. Toss it on, water flows. Get it nice and warm. Then grab that soap, lather up, scrub up to your arms. Count to 10, count again. Keep those bubbles showing. When you're done, rinse them off. Time to dry and go. If you're washing them, you're gonna keep the germs away. If you're washing them, you're gonna keep the germs away. Soap and water's gonna help you keep the germs away. If you're washing them, you're gonna keep the germs away. Away, hey, 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 hey. Away, hey, hey, hey. Away, hey, 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 hey. Away, hey, hey, hey.
Right, so please wash your hands. Often. That was it. That's all. I'm sorry. That's all I had.
All right. Okay, we have come to the point of the meeting where we entertain public comments. At this point, I'd like to remind everyone here that it is the policy of the Chelmsford School Committee to welcome public comments at our meetings. And in order to enable that input and still run an effective meeting, we do have a couple of ground rules. First, please keep your remarks limited time-wise. I'm not going to put an explicit limit on, but be considerate. There are a lot of people here who want to bring something forward. Don't run on. Also, please do not be repetitive. If you agree with something that a previous speaker has said, please just indicate your agreement rather than recapitulating or repeating those remarks. Finally, please respect that once the public input portion of the meeting is closed, there will be no further remarks from the public. That will allow us to have a more efficient meeting. Thank you for your consideration in this matter. I know we have people here to speak on a number of different subjects tonight. I'd like to begin by asking Alicia Mittel to come forward, please. Hi, Alicia. Please take a seat and state your name for the record. You can
Good
pull
evening.
it forward if you like.
Yeah, the microphone moves.
I have that
good
problem all the time.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alicia Mithal, and I'm a junior at CHS.
Good evening. My name is Hernisha Radia, and I'm also a junior at CHS.
And this past week, we've been trying to establish a no homework, test, or quiz policy for the festival of Diwali. Diwali to us is our new year, and we really hope we can establish a policy similar to Rosh Hashanah, which happened just this past week. And yeah.
So I'm here to explain what Diwali is. So Diwali is a 5-day festival, and each day represents something different, and each day we have something different going on in our temples. So the first day is called Dhanteras, and that day we worship the goddess Lakshmi, which is the goddess of wealth, and we ask her to bring prosperity into our homes. That day we go to the temple in the evening at around 7 o'clock, and we perform prayers and rituals that day. The second day is called Kali Chaudas, and it's to abolish laziness and shine light in our lives. And that day we also prepare for our biggest day during the 5-day festival, which is Diwali. So we clean, prepare, make food, and do various different things for Diwali. Our third day is called Diwali, which is the Festival of Lights. And that day, God Ram came back from a 14-year exile, and he came back to his home. And that day we have a small mini Ankut. It's like basically where we have like different dishes prepared in front of our gods at the temple. So we're preparing for that all the time. And then the next day is our New Year's. And that's when we have a huge Ankut, which is also a variety of different foods. And we have around 1,000 different foods. So we have to prepare, we have to make everything. So obviously all of that takes time to prepare and spend time for our religion. So that's basically what Diwali is.
And so this past week we have we collected signatures from all of the students at CHS who celebrate Diwali, and we got approximately 40 signatures. I have them right here. And this isn't even all of the students who celebrate Diwali. There's at least a good 10 to 30 more. So for these 50 to 70 students, they're often torn between celebrating their festival with family and friends and doing homework. And I really think this is similar to like Rosh Hashanah in the case that they get to celebrate with their families, but they aren't put under the stress of school. And if Chelmsford could come together for these 50 to 70 kids, then it would save them a lot of stress.
That concludes it.
Okay.
And Mr. Shah and Mr. Mishra, would you like to come up and say a couple of words?
Hi. I'm sorry, we seem to have run out of chairs.
No, that's okay. I'm fine standing also. My name is Neelkant Mishra, and I'm a parent, and I have a daughter who go to high school, and my son who just graduated from the high school is now in the college out. And what these kids are trying to do, sometimes we feel that in their pressure, and especially they have already added something. I don't want to add more to that. Is especially on the Diwali day, the actual day, these kids. It is one thing that we follow spiritually, that after the sunset we do a Lakshmi, so-called one goddess puja, a prayer service in the home, and we also do in the temple. And at that time, sometimes they bring the books at the time of the prayer service, and we do the puja or the service of the books because we treat them as our goddess also. And at that time after that they don't study. So if they have to do the homework, they have to complete it before that, or find an excuse next day, sorry I couldn't do my homework, and they get nice support from the teachers, and they understand sometime, but not on a regular basis. So that was the support for them from our side, and we have also seen like some of this some of the other states, they do follow that. Especially I found out recently that Utah has a Diwali as their special festival they celebrate there. So just to support the kids, to get them relief from the stress, whatever they can. That's it from my side.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, adding to what Neil said, my name is Amit Shah, and I have a daughter and a son who have gone from Harrington all the way to the CHS. My daughter is in CHS in a 9th, and son is in a middle school in McCarthy. I feel the same thing, that when the kids we are trying to have a festival, which is one of the biggest festival of the whole year, starting of a new year, ending the year, getting ready for the next year. We have a lot of rituals, a lot of festivities, a lot of gathering, a lot of family and friend gathering. And homework is one thing we all know that is so important, at the same time keeping the culture, values and the traditions alive. Homework sometime has shown that kids cannot really engage fully to the extent they would normally be otherwise, be immersed in the activity the way they were meant to be, having no stress. So that's the reason for the support. And just another data point, Mr. White House has been celebrating Diwali for ever since Mr. Barack Obama took over the office. So it's being recognized as a festival of light across the not just India, across the world. And I think we will be setting a good example for setting that giving kids a relief and be able to enjoy the festival. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much. What we're going to do is we have an agenda item to have a calendar discussion. Alicia, I spoke with you briefly, and I think we will solicit input from the teachers union as well as any other interested parties. We have a meeting for next Tuesday, and I hope that we could come to some recommendation at that point.
Well, we have a tri-board meeting on Tuesday.
It is a booked meeting for us, so we can extend afterwards.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
So much.
Thank you for coming out tonight.
Thanks, John.
Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to address the committee at this time? Please come forward and state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Maggie Marshall, and I come before you tonight as a longtime resident of Chelmsford, a graduate of the Chelmsford Public Schools. I have children that have gone through the school system, and I'm a former school library volunteer and employee. I'm also a passionate believer in libraries. I have my master's degree in library science and have been actively involved in libraries since 1972. I've also been a public servant like you all, and I've been a Chelmsford Public Library trustee since 1996. I'm here tonight to express dismay and anger at the systematic dismantling of the Chelmsford school libraries, and specifically to protest the arbitrary dismissal of Valerie Diggs, done in a manner that is in violation of contract rules and in a way that was both inhumane and totally unprofessional. I was active in the Chelmsford School Libraries from 2003 to 2013, first as a substitute school librarian, and then as the elementary school library supervisor from 2009 to 2013. Over these years, I had many dealings with Valerie, who was my direct supervisor and a consummate professional. While involved in the school libraries, I witnessed the loss of 4 positions at the CHS Learning Commons, 2 positions in the middle school libraries, and the reduction of the elementary school library supervisor position from full-time to .2, or 1 day per week. Each of these reductions resulted in more work for the few left behind, and Valerie was the one to pick up most of the slack. Valerie always did so without complaint. I chose to leave my position because I was frustrated and upset by the inequities between technology and libraries in the Chelmsford schools. For me, the final straw was technology's commandeering half of the South Row and Center School libraries to make additional computer labs, using the excuse of Parks testings needing these additional facilities. As we all know, Chelmsford has now decided not to do park testing, so these libraries were decimated for naught. In another blow for the school libraries, administration chose not to fill my position, leaving Valerie with yet another responsibility, which she accepted with grace. In the world of further inequities, the elementary computer staff has a .8 supervisor, while the elementary and middle school librarians now have no supervisor or mentoring of any kind. I don't think that many would argue that the CHS Learning Commons is the jewel in the aging crown of the school. This heavily used place of learning was the vision of Valerie Diggs, and it has been recognized nationally as a state-of-the-art facility. Many educators from all over the United States have visited CHS to tour the Learning Commons. A dual role that Valerie has also handled with skill and grace is that of both school library coordinator and high school librarian. Part of the latter role involves teaching. If CHS students do not receive the type of instruction that Valerie provides, they will be unable to use the many wonderful tools that are available to them. Teachers are dependent on this type of instruction, and Valerie has superb working relationships with the CHS faculty. Without Valerie, the Learning Commons is left in the hands of 2 part-time paraprofessionals, one of whom started in September. It is unrealistic and unfair to place the running of the Learning Commons on these two individuals. With the laying off of Valerie Diggs, the school department has taken a giant step backward in its ability to offer a quality school library program for its students. I urge you, the members of the school committee, to take a hard look at the recent actions of the superintendent and take the steps necessary to correct this short-sighted, damaging move. The students need and deserve a leader for their library program, and the Learning Commons needs to stay as the shining example that has been set by Valerie Diggs. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
So my name's Paul Mihailidis. I'm here on behalf of my family, Marina, Amy, Sue, George, Chris. I'm here on behalf of teachers. I'm here on behalf of the 30,000+ visits we've had to our Support Val Diggs Facebook site, the 400 comments, the 600 shares, and around the world support for Valerie in the form of letters, support comments. And I'm here for all of the teachers. I'm a teacher myself. So I want to talk a little bit about values, ethics, and a precedent that has been set in the town of Chelmsford for the community and for the school. I'm a Chelmsford public school alumni. My brothers, I have 3 siblings, we all came through the school district together. Our mom was always there for us. In fact, Mr. Thomas, Dean Thomas, was one of our mentors, always around, always showing us trust, accountability, and honesty. What came to light last Monday is difficult. I don't need to rehash what happened. We've watched all the tapes. We've dug back into everything we've seen. And I want to put it in the context of fairness. So from what we're understanding about the situation, it's very complicated. It's very difficult. Budgets are hard. Fiscal responsibility is hard. I'm a professor of media education. I direct a nonprofit global organization. I deal with budgets. I understand that. Normally, the due process, as I've seen, is to explore where and how and why budget weakness or fiscal unaccountability has happened, and then to take the appropriate actions. What's happened here is that process is now working itself out. We've heard a lot of different stories. I watched the Finance Committee meeting Thursday, and I watched the workshop Monday. I, along with many others, aren't sure that there's been any direct answers given. The only point of absolute I understand is from the auditor and from the town finance people. The only thing that's happened so far that I understand is that 3 administrators have been let go and positions removed before we've had any real answers as to what this has happened. Audits might take time, we understand that. But I think the precedent that has been set here, if nothing changes, is that when fiscal weakness happens or when budgets get mismanaged for whatever reason, the precedent is that you can get rid of educators. And that happens. You can eliminate positions without knowing the answers. You fired 3 administrators, science, English, and libraries. I'm here for all of them. Valerie Diggs is my mother. I will tell you about her. As a mother who raised 4 kids on her own, basically, went back and got her degree and came to Chelmsford to help fix the libraries, to help bring libraries back to this community. I can read you. We have 400 quotes from around the world of everything she has done. I can read you a couple. I remember the high school in the mid-90s, a stale, staid space mostly used as a hallway cut through for students between periods. We didn't go there on purpose. We went there because we had nowhere to study. Luckily, one dedicated woman was not ready to give up on the space to let it fade away. A woman dedicated to students and finding innovation in education. As a result, the Learning Commons is one of the most innovative and exciting learning environments in the country. Valerie Diggs dedicated over 20 years to re-envisioning and redesigning Chelmsford Public Libraries. She was to retire at the end of the school year. After 20 years of service, she had 7 months left. Rather than celebrate a conclusion to a productive career, she was fired, along with 2 other administrators, because of budgeting errors because of what we think are some weak fiscal management. I'm quoting this now. I'm not making that up. That's what I'm hearing from the auditors and the town's finance people. Everyone knows this is wrong. Every teacher knows this is wrong. Every student knows this is wrong. Every parent knows this is wrong. And every administrator knows this is wrong, all the way up to the superintendent. She was escorted out of the building, not allowed to get her things, not allowed to go to her office, had to come back escorted. How do you get treated in that fashion after 20 years of service to this community? It's not about schools. This is the pillar of Chelmsford. I've come back here after 15 years of education, teaching, writing. I had 2 books ready to give the Chelmsford Library to show them my stake in the community. And that all gets washed away with someone being escorted out the building. Students wrote Valerie Diggs after that, saying they were horrified that they had to watch her get escorted outside of the building. Teacher quotes, I've been a librarian for 40 plus years, for Valerie 10 years. She is by far one of the best librarians I've ever known. Her being fired is an absolute travesty. When do we hear from the people responsibility? We've heard no accountability. This is all anecdotal. I don't understand when the superintendent has said twice that the reason the positions were chosen because they had the least effect on the children. You can look at all the comments we've gotten from Valerie Diggs, support Val Diggs' website. If you can empirically show me she had that to protect the children, she has touched, look at all the teachers here, look at everyone here. Valerie Diggs touched every student in that high school from freshman to senior year. I have hundreds of comments. The students started their own petition, the ribbons are here. This is all because of one person's vision, who was never caught up in politics, who was never caught up in trying to appease people. She just wanted kids to learn. 1 hour before she was fired, she had to have a meeting where she had to outline her 2015 SMART goals. I'm sure you know what those are. The person who facilitated that meeting knew she was getting fired 1 hour later, and they still did the meeting. What treatment is that? I'm sorry I'm going on. I'm going to end it with a quote on precedent and values, and I'm speaking on behalf of educators and community members everywhere. If the school committee chooses to take its time and not rectify this situation, you're setting a precedent for this town. The precedent is that when you have any fiscal issues or budget mismanagement, you can eliminate positions without holding anyone accountable. There's a lot of different reasons happening. I appreciate your diligence and I thank you for this. I'm normally not this animated, guys. I'm a communication professor, so you guys are great. You're on your way. But I will say this. I went to Chelmsford High School from 1992 to 1996. My brothers are back there somewhere. They're tall and ugly. My sister's right there. We all went through that community, and I came out with 3 things. Chelmsford has been so valuable to my life. I always come back here. It's value, it's trust, it's honesty, and it's accountability. I've taken 11 years of university. I've lived all over the world. I've written 3 books. I'm a professor to hundreds of students a year, and I've taken those with me from here. When I played basketball, when I joined the Honor Society, Golden Key, those are the values I've came. If you don't take action, those values are gone. There's no way this community can support this type of behavior. There's no way you can support this type of behavior without finding a way to hold those accountable. If this action can happen, then I don't understand where we're going to go from here. And, the financial issue is amazing. The pending issues that will happen because of this going forward are going to erase any of the financial budgets you've tried to mitigate. And lastly, I'm going to talk a little bit about this idea of fairness and value. Valerie Diggs was all about Chelmsford High School. She was all about this community. She's donated her life here. We grew up here. She's all about this. To say that her career was ruined is the worst thing you can say right now. And I'll say that for everyone here. Her career was justified by the amount of response she was given. And 7 months before, you've alienated hundreds of alumni to this community already. The rest of us are teetering on the edge. We're looking for a response. Without a response, there's piles of people. You picked Valerie Diggs. You picked one of the most well-known community members of Chelmsford to fire and walk out the door with nothing 7 months before. You pick someone who's going to impact the entire community. There's already hundreds of us waiting to not be part of this community anymore. And if there's no action taken, then what does this say about the values that this community upholds? Parents, students, teachers, what does this say about the values that you want your kids? Teachers, can you go into your classroom and say, you know what? Life is tough. People get walked out the door. That's the values we're bringing to our community. Because budgets are hard. I get that. So in closing, I want to thank you all for all. I know this is not easy. I want to thank you all for your dedication to this issue. I also want you to know that this is just a lack of leadership on so many levels. I don't even know how I don't even know how to understand it, but something right and meaningful and fair has to be done. I don't want to recommend anything here, but if you don't take action and you just schedule an audit and wait a year, then you're going to lose this community. The teachers are not going to be able to go back and face their students, and all the parents are going to be asking why teachers get walked out the door when we have no answers for any accountability. Thank you.
I want to thank Val's son for more than an impassioned speech. It was very logical as well. My name's Ben Cole. I live at 86 Gorham Street, Chelmsford. From September to June, I split my residence with 200 Richardson Road. I just have 3 quick things to say. Shouldn't take more than 4 minutes. The first, and I think it's really important to recognize this, and Frank, I'm taking a page from your book with what happened to Westlands.
Sure.
I'd like to point out that we, and by we, I mean the community, I mean our administration, our leadership, our school system do a wonderful job. And we do it on a shoestring budget. We're an AP Scholar school. We're one of the top 50 schools in the state with respect to the MCAS scores. And again, we do this on a shoestring budget. We've earned not only accreditation, but commendations from the NEASC. And I'd like to think that the superintendent and the school committee wants to keep these commendations and sees the value in the NEASC accreditation process. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah, good. Do I get an amen as well? It's disturbing to note that according to NEASC's own support standard, 6.4, which relates to the school resources and technology, the school is responsible for providing students with a licensed, certified librarian. If we lose that librarian, we not only lose the commendations that we've received from NEASC, we're placed on a warning. Our students apply to colleges, and having NEASC accreditation is very, very important in the very competitive world of college applications. So again, we not only lose the commendations, we're placed on a warning level. The high school is also responsible for reporting this to NEASC in a timely manner in its midterm report. Now, I know our NEASC, I thought it was done 2 years ago. I was told we received NEASC accreditation 3 years ago. So I know that midterm report is coming up. And that will have to be reported to the NEASC Association. One more ominous result of the layoff of Valerie Diggs, by the way, was, along with Cindy Sandholm, ironically, the woman who spearheaded the NEASC accreditation process. Life's little ironies. The McCarthy Middle and the Parker Middle School, as well as the high school, will lose all of its free library commissions. Now, I was going to talk them, but if we could select Chelmsford High School, is that possible? And then go to the Learning Commons. we will lose all of the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissions. These are all free databases, free. We don't pay for them. We pay for things such as Chronos' time clocks, no, but that's political and another diatribe. But we lose all these databases, which include the New York Times, the Boston Globe. If we could scroll down, I believe there's about 17 of them here. We not only lose all these databases, we lose all the e-books that the school system has. In an age where it's like pulling teeth, not getting kids to use Wiki, not getting kids to use, well, I'm glad I can't even remember what it is. When we want them to look at good databases, we will lose all those. That will cost us money to get them back. You lose those when you do not have a certified librarian. And again, to get professional certification, it's not a electronic degree. You have to go to Simmons, and I believe the only other one in the state is Bridgewater. And with respect to the e-books, those are very important for our special ed students. That's all I have to say, but that's what we lose. Thank you. One more thing. Yeah. And I know this is a very contentious meeting, and there's lots of emotions. But one thing we have to keep in mind is we do an incredible job. And by we, I'm very holistic with that. And I want to continue doing an incredible job. Thank you.
Superintendent Tiano.
I'm sorry. Can you just state your name for the record?
I was going to get to that. My name is Nicole Bettinelli. I live at 6 Winslow Road in Chelmsford, and I'm currently a senior at Chelmsford High. I am here representing students at CHS. Nelson Mandela once said, "Nothing is impossible until it's done." I, along with many other students that have signed this petition, have been educated in the Chelmsford High School or the Chelmsford school system since kindergarten. Our school system is founded on Chelmsford pride. We honor students with pride awards, and yet what has occurred is definitely not a proud moment in the Chelmsford schools or the Chelmsford community. Pride means treating all people with dignity and respect. While we understand mistakes happen and that it is very difficult to balance a budget that provides students with necessary educational opportunities, we feel that letting key staff members go cannot be the best and or only solution. I realize that many of you may feel that students are naive and not capable of understanding the current situation. However, we understand that 3 of our administrators were dismissed because of an error that had essentially nothing to do with them or their performance at CHS. We are here to appeal to you to reconsider the current situation and reinstate Ms. Diggs, Dr. Zulli, and Mr. Kittredge to their rightful positions. Some of us are graduating in June. Others will be continuing in the school system. We want to hold our heads high, know that we have represented CHS in a dignified and respectful manner, and feel Chelmsford pride. Right now, we feel ashamed that our dedicated educators were treated so poorly and that we do not have access to their knowledge and expertise. I came here to present this student petition to you for consideration. In a little over 3 hours, over 300 students have signed this petition. Nelson Mandela faced a much greater challenge than this, and he found a way to succeed. Now it is your turn to meet this challenge and restore pride in the Chelmsford schools. Thank you.
Hello,
Hey.
my name's Judy Paradis, and I'm the current president of the Massachusetts School Library Association. And I don't know, do you need my address?
No. It's
Okay. Live in Massachusetts. I'm here tonight hoping to put this into a larger than Chelmsford context. And I've sent a letter to you this week that I'm sure you've all received. I also am expecting that you either will or have received letters from the New Hampshire School Library Association, the New England School Library Association, and from the American Association of School Libraries. I'm here to try to put this in a context that lets you know how important this is, not just to Chelmsford, but really to the National Library community. In 2008, I was one of many, many professionals who came to Chelmsford for the opening of the Chelmsford High School Learning Commons. And I'll be honest, it was one of the most extraordinary professional experiences I've ever had. I got teary. It was astonishing. Not only had Valerie created one of the most incredible learning spaces I have ever seen, but she had assembled some of the top names in library, school library practice from around the nation who flew in to see this space and to see what it was going to produce for the kids in this community. And we were just so taken with her vision. Since that time, as you probably well know, this situation where library professionals are let go when there's a budget crisis is actually a fairly common, unfortunately, moment in Massachusetts. However, we never expected to see it here. This was a national leader in school library programs. Monday, when we heard about this, there were about 15 librarians out in Sturbridge, Massachusetts at a conference committee meeting planning our next conference at the University of Massachusetts when we heard what happened that day. We were stunned. We drove around looking for a place where we could sit and talk about it because we couldn't conceive that this had happened. That's how revered Valerie was in our organization. All week long, I've been receiving emails, phone calls, letters from people saying, what can we do for Valerie? So I want to just let you know what this does to the library community and to the kids in Massachusetts, because it affects the kids in Massachusetts. We often get calls at MSLA asking us, can we point to a program that shows us what a school library program is supposed to look like? This, for a long time, was one of those places we sent people. And it wasn't the space. The space was a big part of it, but the space came from Valerie Diggs. She envisioned that. She thought about it. She contacted people all over the United States to ask what the best possible learning space would be, and then she created it. And after she did that, she used it. And she used it really, really well from everything we heard. Now, Valerie preceded me as president of MSLA, so I've spent a lot of time with her, traveling, talking, attending meetings, sharing hotel rooms. You talk a lot with someone, and I know that the program's been chipped away recently, and I know that's really, really been a great blow to her professionally. She thought she could ride out the year. We thought she could ride out the year. And our hope was that because the program was so well regarded, that you would have the vision that she had to make sure that the program continued in the way that Valerie had envisioned it. So that that space, those materials, and more than that, the collaborative spirit that Valerie had developed with her teachers and with her students, so they knew they could come to that space not just to get out books, not just to use databases, but to ask and think and create and share what they learned in a real 21st century fashion could continue to happen. So what we're asking you tonight is to let us continue to have that space, not just as a space, but as a program that we can be proud of in the state of Massachusetts. So when people from Seattle, Washington, or San Jose, or any place in the United States say, what's a really wonderful program to go look at for school libraries in the United States, we can continue to say it's in Chelmsford. We were really proud of you, and we want to continue to be really proud of Chelmsford. So we hope you'll take that into consideration as you go forward deciding what to do with your library program. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Sandy Kelly. I'm a former president of the Massachusetts School Library Association, and actually I'm the person that nominated Valerie to become the president after me. I'm passing around an infographic, which unfortunately got a little bit cut off. This was just recently published by the American Association of School Librarians, which is a division of ALA, the national organization. Following the comments about your databases, I think it is interesting follow-up to put also in perspective how important school libraries are. On the left-hand side, unfortunately the one that got cut off, the question is sideways. It says, the These are sources that students are very likely to use in a research assignment. The 94% one is a Google. Now, if you're information literate, you know that most kids at this age are not information literate enough to detect bias and whose credibility in that sort of thing. This is not really what I came to say, however. I have written a letter to all of you school committee members, and I have a lot of experience in education. I was a classroom teacher. I converted to a school librarian, and I retired after 30 years in the profession. I've also served on a school committee. I understand your time commitment here, and I'm a national board certified librarian, one of the first in the state. And I'm not here to toot my own horn, but I am going to read some of this because I'm also getting old and I forget sometimes what I really want to say. So I'm going to tell you that I've done my research. I'm a school librarian. According to local news sources, in solving the budget shortage, you now face You have a budget deficit. And from what I've learned from news sources, over 90 expenses were moved into the fiscal year 2015 budget. It seems that occurred some 2 months before the start of school, from what I've heard and read. In spite of this predictable shortfall, it appears that there was no significant attempt to freeze the school budget before September to control any unnecessary spending. This is a common practice in many communities, and I would suspect from my own experience that numerous purchase orders were approved and processed through the business office immediately after June 30th so that supplies could be received by the beginning of the school year. A close inspection of some of these purchase orders may have revealed that not all of the purchases were necessary to place in June. A hold could have been put on them had that foresight been used. So instead of acting proactively, now we have a reactive knee-jerk decision to make up the funds by, I will say, illegally and without prior warning, dismissing of contractual employees. This includes my extremely competent and valued colleague, Valerie Diggs. She is a nationally recognized school library teacher. This happened to be the year of her retirement, and I believe this is unconscionable in our profession. And yes, I am emotional about this, but teachers are not widget makers. Good educators, and I quote from your own website, good educators produce self-directed, creative, and inspired learners. There has been clear lack of research and leadership demonstrated in this decision-making process. Certainly, there was an underestimation of the educational impact this possession holds, especially at the high school level. There are numerous research studies that prove school libraries and librarians have a positive impact on student achievement, regardless of socioeconomic standing. School librarians are teachers who know the school's curriculum, usually all of it, in fact, and use effective techniques across all disciplines while integrating information and technology literacy. We work tirelessly to provide cutting-edge leadership in strong pedagogy and informational technologies. Mrs. Diggs is an exemplary role model to my profession. Well-informed administrators right here in Massachusetts, and I know of 2 of them off the top of my head, are scrambling to replace people like Valerie Diggs in her position. They are actually recruiting retirees to come back to work in their school libraries to replace people like Valerie. According to the superintendent, Dr. Tiano's introduction on your district's strategic planning process, I quote, "The Chelmsford Public Schools provides all students with multiple pathways to optimize their own potential for academic excellence, leadership, and social and emotional wellness. Additionally, every student feels safe, cared for, appropriately challenged, and supported in schools that are fully staffed and technologically integrated. Student successes are celebrated within and across schools, as well as throughout the community, and as a result of high-quality teaching, meaningful partnerships, and well-resourced schools, students contribute to the Chelmsford community as self-directed, creative, and inspired learners who are ready to tackle contemporary issues. I can think of nowhere that this vision has been more successfully achieved and evident than right here at your Chelmsford High School Learning Commons under Valerie Diggs' direction. Your strategic plan was right in front of you. 1 week before releasing Mrs. Diggs, I read on the website that Matt Malone, the Secretary of Education, did have a tour of your school, and I'm glad that you commented on that, because I too quote from the website that they visited at the high school, the Black Box Theater, family, consumer science classes, the science wing, athletics, technology, education classes, the career center, the performing arts center, and the cafeteria. However, your nationally acclaimed Learning Commons was not part of this tour? Really? Truly? If you were consciously trying to show impact on student learning and tout what you really have at CHS, why would you take them to the cafeteria and not the Learning Commons? People have traveled from all over the United States to come see what you have here. One prominent administrator, who's now the president of the whole American Library Association, she brought a whole cadre of teachers from New York to see this model of excellence. Many other districts right here in Massachusetts have emulated the program that Valerie Diggs created in your high school. Even the Massachusetts Board of Education held one of their meetings right up there after it was opened. And yet it was not included on the Secretary of Education's tour for this new Secretary of Ed. The actions of the past few weeks show a true lack of knowledge about your Learning Commons program and appreciation or understanding for what you have. There appears to be no institutional knowledge about what the educators and students here obviously value. And one point that I say has not been made, but it has since been made, is that Valerie and her husband, Glenn, have lived in this town for something like 40 years. They help pay for the Chelmsford schools, never mind Valerie's blood, sweat, and tears up in that room. But those taxes also go to help pay the salaries of those who run the school. According to Dr. Tiano's website, your mission is to cultivate inspired, creative, and well-rounded lifelong learners who possess the integrity and the self-direction necessary to be contributing members of society. These are the exact objectives and values that Valerie Diggs exemplifies at school every day. And I am asking that the same type of integrity and self-direction be modeled by you, the school committee. Two wrongs do not make a right. You, as the school committee, have the power to advise the superintendent to reappoint Valerie Diggs as Chelmsford High School librarian. This would resolve any potential issue with accreditation, which is important to parents and taxpayers as it does impact college acceptance and property values. It will also allow your high school to maintain free access to all of those state databases, which are provided to you because you have a certified school librarian who made you a member of the Mass Regional Library System. And it would allow my friend Valerie Diggs to finish her 20-year career in Chelmsford with the respect and the dignity she has afforded to others all across this community.
My name is Glenn Diggs. Obviously, I'm related to Valerie. And it appears that I am running maybe the last leg. Are you going to speak? All right, one of the last legs of the relay here. I hope I measure up to the task. First of all, I would like to thank all of the people here teachers, administrators, residents, for Valerie, who very much appreciate your support. I haven't got to talk to her much because she's continually on one media device after another answering messages. I'd like to address 2 points. First of all, I have not attended any meetings in town other than in the last 2 weeks. It's been a real eye-opener. And I hope to further many meetings in the future, and hopefully at some point to sit on the other side of the table. If you had attended the meeting of the Town Finance Commission last week, you may have heard me reference Monopoly. When I was younger, I was always playing Monopoly, and I was very good at it, all right? And one of the ways that I found was the way to win was to always be the banker. Now, I was very aggressive, and I would set up a plan for how I was going to extend my wealth. I would have a budget. But, unfortunately, like a lot of things in life, sometimes you don't meet the budget demands. And so, me as the banker, I would announce to all the other players when I got in trouble that we're going to have a little free cash. And I assumed that free cash was always in the world of games and play. Well, guess what? When I started attending meetings, I found out that right here in Chelmsford, in the real world, we have free cash. It's money that the town wisely sets aside for things that come up that you just can't predict, things that have merit. So last night, after the meeting, this Board of Selectmen had a meeting, and I watched that, and I found numerous things were brought to the table that were considerations for free cash. One of them was the school committee's problem of having to deal with this lack of funds that was created that nobody knows how, or how much, or where. And the rest of the items, all of them, all had a common thread, unlike the school's potential request for money. And that is, they were all things that came up out of the blue. Things that were opportunities for the town to enhance public space. Things that might break down, that you couldn't predict. But all things that had money, had expectations of working, or surprises. Only the school's potential request for money was deviant from that. The problems associated with that money from the meetings that I had, that I've seen, and I'm sure there are many meetings I should have been able to go to and didn't, showed that there appears to be some systemic problem in the school budgeting process and the way that they handle money that goes on and on and on. And then when there is a shortfall, they go to get free cash from the town, which means there are other things that come up that they cannot spend the money on that may be equally as important, if not more important. It was said at the meeting with the Finance Committee that the school was to come back before the town meeting with a plan. Where did it go? What happened? What are you going to do to fix it? So forth and so on. They said, yeah, okay, 2 weeks. Last night at the selectmen meeting, Paul Cohen, the town manager, looked at them all and said, you know what? They won't have it for months. After watching it, I don't think they're going to have it for years. On the second point, and addressing that first point, I would have to think that the integrity of the funds given in trust to the school department are paramount in terms of a superintendent doing his job. That's $50 million or so. Half of the money or roughly half the money that the town has at its disposal to pay its bills. That money doesn't seem to be working where it has to work. Second, a leader doesn't need to have all his subordinates love him. Doesn't work that way. But what he does have to have is he has to have their respect. I think if you look at this room and hear all the stories, this administration has no respect. It has no respect from its coordinators. It has no respect from its teachers. It has no respect from its students, no respect from its residents. And without that respect, there is no effective management. No plan is ever going to work. Frankly, I offer my opinion, as I do that of the coordinators, teachers, students, and residents, that the school committee do the right thing. They do your job. For $163,415.38, you couldn't do much worse. You need to find something new, which is Frank's salary. Thank you.
John Souza, 88 Carlisle Street, Town Finance Director. Just like to start out by saying last night I attended the school committee workshop, and a few of the things I heard gave me more concern. One of the things that troubled me last night is, and also after hearing last Thursday, is the dollar number of this problem still remains unknown, as a previous speaker said. If, as the business manager says, this is simply a result of not charging certain invoices to revolving funds, I'm not sure I follow why we still don't understand the full extent of the deficit. No matter which fund you charge these invoices to, it should simply be a matter of adding up the invoices and getting the total. My second point is the discussion of having MASBO come in and lead this financial management audit. And for those that may be unaware, MASBO stands for the Massachusetts Association of School Business Officials. It's a professional association of school business managers. Having a group like this, it's a professional association, and this is my opinion, come in would be similar to having the Massachusetts Collectors and Treasurers Association, my professional organization that I belong to, come in and perform an audit on my work at the town offices. The problem you're going to run into is that, and I have no doubt MASBO is a good organization, but the problem you're going to run into is people have professional working relationships, and due to professional courtesy, I just find it doubtful that they're going to be able to be as truly objective and have the professional skepticism that an auditor would when they do this study. I think to instill confidence, you need to have an organization or an agency come in that doesn't have any ties to current school management. At the Finance Committee last Thursday, Richard Sullivan, one of the directors of Powers and Sullivan, asked the school business manager directly, "Are there any more old invoices still to come?" She answered no. As a result, I was surprised today to receive a memo from the town accountant late this afternoon saying that a new batch of invoices from FY15 had been submitted, a total of 114 bills for a little over $114,000. I'd also point out that late yesterday, I happened to be in the accounting office on some other business, and the staff received a collections call from a food services vendor demanding payment for June invoices. The food services vendor happens to be Gorelick Farms. And we're talking June invoices, so I'm not understanding why it takes 3 to 4 months for these invoices to be submitted for payment, having been a former school business office employee myself back in '06 and '07. The third company involved is Kelly Services, who provides staff, substitute teaching and other services to the school system. About, I would say roughly 2 to 3 weeks ago, the town accountant questioned a number of invoices that had been delivered from Kelly Services because many of the dates were so old. When she examined the invoices, she got in touch with the school business manager, and the story was, well, the problem is that they didn't come over more timely because the Kelly Services delivered them or mailed them to all the individual schools, and then they sat on desk during summer vacation. It didn't make sense. We looked at the invoices, and I don't have them with me, but they are available. The address on these invoices says 230 North Road, the building that we're sitting in. So again, I'm not here to be the enemy. I've served as town finance director for almost 7 years now. All I want to say, and I'll wrap it up, is that I think I want to caution the school committee, I think we're in uncharted waters. I do not ever recall during my tenure having this many problems with the Chelmsford schools receiving and submitting invoices in a timely manner. So I'd ask the committee just to take my remarks into consideration. My authority does not extend into the schools, even though I have the title finance director. That's under state law. I can only raise a red flag. I thank you for listening.
Marina Mihailidis, I'm Valerie's daughter. We passed these out today, but I think that in honor of her, we should read this, and it goes to show her professionalism and her selflessness in light of what has happened. And I would also, before I read this note, I would like everyone to hold up your signs so that everyone can visibly see not only the amount of people that are here, but the support in the signs. Rehire, don't fire. This one's my favorite. Read between the lines. We need our librarian. I'm not going to read them all, but I just wanted to point that out. My mother wrote, I would like to thank the hundreds of supporters who posted to this page, as they have recorded hundreds of comments, over 1,150 likes, and over 28,000 views, all within the past few days. I'm going to pause there and just say that those numbers have drastically risen. This was written a few days ago. I am in awe of and humbled by this outpouring of support. October is Information Literacy Month. In short, being information literate means to have the ability to use information effectively and ethically. I would like to think of the support this page has received as an acknowledgement of what school librarians do to help ensure that our students are information literate, and how invaluable this is to the success of students as they move through all stages of life. In addition, I want my supporters to know that taking risks, thinking outside of the box, and being creative is what school libraries are all about today. It takes a professional to navigate this course in our schools and for our students. My wish is for administrators and school committees everywhere to believe in the value of having a certified school librarian in every school. Our students need access to professional services and creative thinkers now more than ever. Thank you, Valerie Diggs.
So I'm reading this letter on behalf of Susan D. Ballard. Dear Chairman Rigney and members of the Chelmsford School Committee, no doubt you have already heard from many regarding the recent decision to dismiss 3 members of the Chelmsford High School administrative team. From all accounts, this action has resulted in an overwhelming outcry from your community, and in the instance of Valerie Diggs, has extended to the education and school library community of Massachusetts and beyond into the New England region and across the country. I am but one of many colleagues of Valerie who are thoroughly puzzled by this action. While I am aware that you are struggling with a difficult financial situation, and I do not envy you your task in reconciling your budget dilemma, this decision jeopardizes the investment your community has made in support of your educational program. More importantly, the anticipated dividends that should be realized in terms of student success and achievement are at risk. I have known Valerie for many years and have had the honor of serving with her on the board of directors of the New England School Library Association and the American Association of School Librarians, where she represented the New England region and I served as president. She is much admired and one of the most forward-thinking, future-ready practitioners I know. Her contributions to education, school librarianship, technology integration, and digital conversion efforts are breathtaking in their scope and depth. Therefore, it is difficult to make sense of your choice to abruptly deprive your students and teachers of the benefit of a visionary leader who has succeeded in providing Chelmsford with an innovative, world-class program through the development of the highly collaborative and student-centered learning commons at Chelmsford High School. I hope you will reconsider your stance and that the Chelmsford School Committee will support the many parents, students, teachers, community members, and others who have connected with you to express their concern by reinstating Valerie Diggs to the position of Department Coordinator of Libraries. Respectfully, Susan D. Ballard.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kathy Zimmerman. I'm an English teacher at Chelmsford High, and I'm going to scrap most of what I had written to say because most of it's been said, but I wanted to just go on record for two programs that Valerie was responsible for, both that I worry about if we don't have a Valerie to do that. And that is the Common Core curriculum, which we've all been realigning our standards and our curriculum to meet, is all about having kids college ready for writing and research. And the databases have been referred to, but also all of my colleagues, and I'm willing to say most all of, if not all of the history teachers are the ones that I know of, we've taken our classes up to the Learning Commons so Valerie can teach the kids how to avoid plagiarizing, which is huge. It takes more than just a technology adept person, also an academic like Valerie who teaches the skills of library science. So I worry about that because footnoting, writing a research paper, valid sources, all of that stuff that's been mentioned is huge. At the other end of the spectrum, where Valerie put her heart and soul as well, is in a program that when I leave Chelmsford High School, it's one of the best memories I will take away from me, and that is the Listening Lunch program, where Valerie empowered the students to plan once a month an assembly, if you will, that's an old-fashioned word, but a program where kids would play music and sing, along with staff who would play music and sing, recite poetry, tell stories, and it was a chance to be in a library, and a learning commons with 200 or more kids and staff all mixed together, enjoying talents that we might not have known some of our students possessed, which other students didn't know their friends possessed. And it was a remarkable, transforming experience that happened once a month at Chelmsford High School. I don't know that anybody will pick up that task. Valerie volunteered to do it, along with orchestrating our poetry slam, which meant a lot to me. Again, a tremendous effort on her part to have 200 kids slam poems, have teachers judging, have laughs, have fun, bring poetry to our school. Again, another program Valerie was responsible for that will be hard to replicate. So I just wanted to go on record on behalf of my colleagues and hope that it might be naive to think, but hope that Valerie can be back in our library for our benefit. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the committee at this time? Please come forward.
Hi, my name's Steve Quartermarsh, and I'm an English teacher at the high school. A lot has been said about Val. She's amazing and remarkable. My concern is in my department. Jen Zulli had just begun a career, a new step in her life, in a lot of ways. It's really kind of tragic what happened to her, if you think about it. And I also very concerned about when we try to replace someone like that, and they discover exactly how their predecessor was dismissed in a very undignified fashion. So just wanted to say that.
Thanks. Is there anyone else? Please come forward.
My name is Amit Shah, and I moved to Chelmsford in '99 for one of the reasons that Chelmsford had to offer, one of the better school systems around the district. I bought another house this summer, knowing that the roots are very profound for the values and education the town has to offer. Not knowing this would happen, this budget deficit, I'm going to ask a business question. How are you going to replace the deficit the community is going to have to afford without being informed earlier as a part of the school committee, not trying to balance the budget only on one side of the equation, but how about the community values that you're going to lose as a deficit? That's all.
Anyone else tonight? Okay. Well, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for coming out here. We appreciate you bringing all of your concerns and all of your thoughts forward. This is an important part of our democracy. Thank you. Now we'll have a short break while we rehydrate. I thought that went very well. It's okay.
Scott's up.
That's great. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, no, we're talking about the, yeah, I just said she wants to know what
I mean, my mom taught there for years, 30 years, so I
Well, yeah, I think we need to go through it and just, I think we're not going to have a vote tonight. Just frame it. Yeah.
he's on his microphone.
Well, you know what? Well, let's do it. We'll do it on camera. We'll do it. I'm going to need to gavel people back in. I'm just saying, let's. Yeah, the mics are still on, right? We're in the middle of a meeting, so. No, he's. Yeah, you know what? Thank you. I appreciate that. No, I think what he was saying is that the mics are still live because we're still in a meeting, so we shouldn't be having private conversations.
It's not the right one. Not you, I'm talking.
Hey guys, this is still a meeting. We haven't recessed. It's live. We're gonna get ourselves a problem here. Can I please have the Chelmsford School Committee members return to their seats?
It is so warm in here.
All right. The next item on the agenda is the first item of new business, the academic calendar discussion. Yeah, folks, I'm going to ask you if you're going to stay in the room, not to have discussions. If you'd like to have discussions, please go outside. The first item on the agenda is a discussion of the academic calendar. Recently, you heard a presentation from students and adults in the community requesting that we consider Diwali to be a homework holiday. I have a couple of things that I would like to add to the discussion, then I'll open it up for comments. First is that policy 63-1401 says that there will be no tests scheduled or homework on the days marked on the calendar. You have a copy of the calendar in your packet. As you can see, Diwali is not marked this year. The policy itself does not say anything about changing the calendar in the middle of the year, although it does note that the school committee will vote annually to accept the calendar. So I suppose the first question is, can we vote to amend the calendar now for the current school year? The other thing that I'd like to put forward for discussion is not a policy, but a part of the contract with the teachers union. Article 6-01 says that the CFT will be consulted, but the final decision about the calendar belongs to the school committee and is not subject to grievance or arbitration. I think at a minimum, we need to request input from the CFT. Does anyone have anything they want to say about taking a vote tonight or making a decision now, or what they think the path forward should be?
My opinion is that we should check to see what the impact is going to be on the CFT, because we already know that teachers have their planning all done and how they're going to schedule tests and homework and all this other stuff in light of what the calendar is for the current marked holidays. That doesn't mean that I'm opposed to having this as one of the marked holidays, but we need to know what the impact is going to be on our staff as far as that goes, and how that may change some of their planning at that time. That being said, we have a meeting next week, which we can vote at that point. I think that we can have some input maybe gained by that time, so that we could actually, if we wanted to vote on something, we can vote on it on the 14th. They would know what was going on the next week, because this is coming up fast. The question is it 1 day or 5 days? They made a comment about that, and I looked it up, that the most important day is the Festival of Lights. I mean, if that is just like with some of the other holidays that are marked here, they're not all of them, of the whole time when they have the range of, whether it's a week or 3 days or whatever the time frame is, if there's one day that is and goes on into the future calendars, because this is not the first time this will be requested, then we need to know whether or not it's 1 day or 5, because they stated 5. And when I did some of the research online, there's a lot going on in every day of what they participate in, whether they're at home or they're at their temple. So that all being said, we can, at some point in the future, modify that particular policy to reflect this and some of the things that we know that are not in that policy, being on the policy subcommittee. But I wouldn't vote to amend the calendar tonight without input.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to do that either. But I think in the long term that we have to come up with a policy change. I think we have to have something that takes the decision about missed days away from any particular religion. Because if we, this happens to be the one this time, and it's a significant group, and it needs to be considered. But there are other, not only religions, but denominations. And, even within a denomination, an Orthodox person, and I'm not talking about necessarily one religion, or one that strictly adheres to things, may have 3 days or 5 days, where someone who's more liberal or reform or whatever may have 1 day. So when you start putting in days on the calendar, it only partially solves the problem, because you're going to have to come up with the exception for the, okay, you put on the calendar 1 day, what do I do when I have these other 2 days? So I think in the long run, and I'm pretty confident that there's language that exists along this line that's more general and puts responsibility perhaps more on the parent. The big problem with this, which I will acknowledge as a former teacher, is that means that you're doing makeup and preparing lessons ahead all the time, or a significant amount of time. So when a decision is made, in that language, I know, I'm not a union person, but I know that the union is going to have concern about how those things are going to be handled, because I've heard this discussion before. So I think that we need a long-term change to take it off of specific days and specific religions.
Okay.
Can I add one thing?
Sure.
First of all, I didn't realize how many in terms of numbers, because that would be a consideration that we had in the past during discussions on actually noting other religions than what is currently on the calendar. Would be numbers. I mean, if you have a small number, it can be handled the way we used to handle it. I may still have in my computer all the revisions we've made to this policy over the past 10 years. And I would recommend to the committee that if we're going to make any changes to this policy, that there are certain key stakeholders that we invite in for information prior to making any changes, because of the history that has gone along with this. So I understand where you're coming from. We've gone in different directions, and when we've made the changes without their input, or if we want to make changes they don't like, we have a lot of conversation like we did this evening, except on a different issue. So we would need to do that if we're thinking to consider that.
I agree, having been through that.
Okay. I will, let me introduce one more point. In Ms. Mithel's original email, she said Diwali falls on Thursday, October 3rd, and Friday, October 4th. So I take that to mean that those would be the two significant days that she's looking for relief from homework on. I will follow up with her to make sure that's clearly understood, that that's actually what's being requested. We'll have that in time for the discussion next week. But I'll just say that it kind of sounds like you guys aren't so much wanting to have a vote at all.
Not this evening.
Next week.
Well,
No, next. Well, I guess that's what I'm asking. I mean, is it already your concern that things are so complicated that we need to immediately put this to a policy subcommittee, or are you willing to have a vote next week to manage the upcoming holiday with kind of the understanding that we're also going to have to revisit the policy?
I don't want to wait for policy change in order to do anything. That was not my recommendation. I was reacting to what Al had stated about the policy so that we don't have to do this, if we could have it more of a general solution to the situation. I'm not in opposition to having any kind of a motion if we so choose to want to go in that direction this year, but I would like, since we have in the policy the notification with the teacher union, even though we don't have to adhere to what they suggest, I just want to make sure that they know what we're thinking. I want them informed. I want to make sure that the staff is communicated with, that we're thinking about adding this. Do they also change the days just like the other? I mean, does this rotate?
I believe it's a lunar-based holiday,
Okay.
and so, yeah, it can be expected to rotate.
Was there, I think you picked it up, just said, so there seemed to be one day that was more important than the others?
They highlighted
It
that
sounded
day.
like there were significant temple services on the third and fourth day,
Okay.
which that's, I'm guessing that's going to be the 23rd.
Do you think we'll ever get to the point where parents write a letter and say, we intend to recognize these days as part of our religious faith, and bring that letter in lieu of making changes district-wide, just those students who bring in a letter?
We tried
Well,
that.
I think that would be
Okay.
that would be one of the potential policy changes
I'm gonna
to return to a system like
I'm
that.
going to look and see if I have all of the revisions. We went in that direction.
And it was not successful?
It wasn't that, it had nothing to do with that. It was not acceptable to the community in which it was.
Because they felt they were being
They were,
select-
yes.
yeah. Okay.
They didn't want their children to be identified with a specific religion for a specific request for a reason. But I think that, again, we're talking about this one, and I think that we should just focus on whether or not we want to go in the direction of that, and then we can focus on the policy and how we're going to handle that, and input relative to if we want to change a policy to go back to that particular practice.
Well, with email now, and it just seems like it can be much more confidential. It's not.
I know, you don't have to hand a piece of paper to a
Right,
teacher.
there's no isolating, other than the child not announcing to others that I will not be doing the homework.
I understand that, and I think that has to be the discussion with the different group or groups of people that have impacted this policy over the years, but having had the history of it, don't want to just go ahead and do something without going forward, because I think that we had told them that if we were ever going to make any changes, that we would include them in the discussion of that prior to a change.
And are you looking for populations? Were you looking
It's only the ones that are on the calendar that
No. I thought you were saying you wanted an impact. How many students were impacted?
I was surprised with this particular request, how many students have practiced that religion in our schools.
Okay.
That, because if you only have 2 or 3, that's different than having 70.
Yes.
So,
At the high school.
Yes, only. And so we don't know how many more there are at the other levels.
Right.
That it will impact them also. And it may be even more significant than we think it is, because we don't survey for that information.
Right.
I wouldn't want to have anybody think that we're surveying, if we ever wanted to ask, that it would have any negative connotations, because that's not the intent. If they want to do a survey at the other levels and have the student come back and say, at the middle school we have this many, and at the elementary school we have that many, and that's a volunteer from their side, I think that might be of interest to see exactly how many students are impacted if we do have this on our calendar.
Anything else?
No.
Okay, so
If you're creating an agenda, we
I-
need that as an action item. next
that's
week.
right. I will follow up with Alicia to confirm that those are the dates that they're looking for. I will send a letter, an email, I think, to the head of the CFT, inviting their comments. I assume the administration has an opinion on it as well, or will have an opinion on it as well.
Yes.
And I suppose I'd put out a general call if there's anyone else in the community who has a point of view. Please reach out and contact us. I think if we come to a conclusion next week, that is probably timely enough. That's my naive view now. Perhaps people will enlighten me as to whether or not 2 weeks is enough time to to minimize the impact on the lesson plans, obviously that's a possibility. Okay, thank you for that. The next item of new business is an update on the high school athletics program. Dr. Tiano?
Sure. We have Scott Moreau. He is our athletic director. And what Scott will be presenting essentially is an update around our athletic programming. Scott will be sharing with you around his programs, the participation, the number of students that participate in athletics. Also, too, will update you with some of the organizational pieces that he's been working on in terms of handbooks, surveys, evaluations. Scott also, too, will be giving you an update regarding the turf field, where we are with that, and also to fundraising. You know, we've had some questions around this table, and we thought it'd be appropriate to have Scott in, as well as to speak to the turf as well. So, Scott, you have a presentation for us, and I'll let you begin.
Thanks, Dr. Tiano. Like Dr. Tiano said, he had mentioned to me at some meetings there had been some questions regarding some of the things that we're doing, so he thought it'd be beneficial for me to come in and speak to the committee. So it's really brief, some questions that were asked recently we're going to try to answer for you tonight. So just be a brief introduction, talk a little bit about our programs and participation. We like to brag a little bit about what we're doing, so and then turf update and fundraising procedures and how we do it and why we do it. This is some stats from last year. We offer 31 varsity programs, 34 sub-varsity programs. Last year, we serviced 1,453 participants. So recognize that some of those kids are double participants. You know, there's about 1,600 or so in the building. Really about 70 to 75% of the kids participate in some sort of athletics. Overall record last year, we had a great year, 297, 176, and 21. We won 5 league titles. Girls swim won a Division I state title. Probably saw them at the parade if you were there on a float. It was pretty cool. And we had 65 MVC all-conference selections, 92 MVC all-stars, 6 players of the year. You know, we service so many kids and they work so hard. It'd be crazy not to talk about some of their accolades. Some nuts and bolts things that we're doing that we have done. We've updated the athletic handbook. So for years, we had kind of an all-encompassing handbook. It was coaches and athletes, kind of what was expected from all of those people. It was all kind of compiled into one handbook that was done in the 90s, I believe, early 90s. So it was time to update that. Dr. Tiano came to me, Principal Caleri came to me and said, we need to kind of update. We've updated our student handbooks over the years. This needs to be done. So we put a team of coaches together with myself, put a subcommittee together, worked on it all last year, and now we're using that handbook. It's available online, and it was a nice process, to be honest. I've done it before in another district, and it was more about me doing it. It was more inclusive this time with coaches, and it was a nice project that we did, and I owe a lot of the credit to the coaches that helped me with it. This year I'll be doing a coach's handbook. So like I said, we kind of took, instead of putting 2 together, there's more things today. There's more things that we have to do. There's more forms to fill out. There's more on coaches to do. There's more for everybody to do. And to have that one handbook, it really didn't describe things enough. So now we're going to work on the coach's handbook this year. And so we have just a really easy blueprint to give a coach when they come into the district. So that'll be completed by the end of the school year. We've heard a lot about student-athlete surveys, and I'll be honest, I wasn't crazy about them to begin with. I really wasn't. But talking to some fellow ADs, some of them do it, some don't, but they have gotten good information. We piloted it with the captains last year. I thought it was helpful. This year we'll do it with all the athletes. So no matter what level you play, you'll be involved in a survey at the end of their season. So we're getting ready to do that at the end of this fall season for the first time for all athletes.
Could you just quickly comment on what type of survey, what it gets at?
What it gets at?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it'd be more about the athlete's experience on their team, you know? Communication from coaches, the experience with their other teammates, communication from the athletic department, all things encompassing. It's really going to be kind of short, probably, 10, 12 questions kind of thing, to give us kind of a baseline. It will be helpful when we get into evaluations with coaches to be able to get feedback from those students and say, the surveys are saying this, and we think we're doing this. So I think it'll be helpful. And evaluations, now that we talk about it, there's been some questions on how we evaluate coaches, and we know the evaluation process for the staff in the schools now. So it's a little different for coaches. We do it seasonally. You have to remember that the coaching jobs are one-year positions, so it's not something that they have forever, so to speak, you know. But what we do, so just a little explanation of how we do it is, I have a coach fill out a self-evaluation. They do it a couple of weeks before we end up meeting. They send it to me, I read through it, then we meet, talk about it, and we go back and forth on things that they've said or written in their self-evaluation that I can either help them with, or, things that they do well, things that they can improve on. Turf, all things turf. So, we're in our first full year of having 2 fields going. Last year at this time, we really only had 1 field going. So it was really hard to rent that field. So when we get down into revenues, I'll explain a little bit about that. But just to talk about the final pieces of the puzzle getting put together. The recognition areas, they're really unbelievable. If anybody has had a chance to go see them, they came out beautiful. They're at both spots. There's 3 plaques at each field. It was just a great way to really recognize everybody that we could, and everybody that kind of helped us along the way to put this together. Final upgrades. Ticket booths at Simonian, they just got finished, really, what day is today? Tuesday. Monday, they got finally sided. But they were up for the first football game of the year. When we have other events in the stadium, it's hard to collect tickets at those booths. So we take the tickets, like for soccer, field hockey, lacrosse, those types of things, we take tickets right at the gate when you walk in. But for a football game, as you can imagine, to do that, it would be impossible. So these 2 ticket booths were on the plan originally for the turf project. We finally got to get those going and put them in there. So they really look great. They could ride by. Like I said, they got sided yesterday and today, and obviously the Chelmsford colors for the siding. Sound systems at both fields. We were able to upgrade the sound system at Simonian, and we were able to put a sound system in at McCarthy. The McCarthy sound system isn't in yet, but it has been purchased, and we are doing it. And a timing system at the McCarthy track. That was a huge piece to this puzzle. We're going to be able to host these major events, and you have to have electronic timing to do it. And the infrastructure's there for it, and we got the timing system as part of the whole project, so that's really nice. That came in recently as well. Rental information. So I guess you evolve a little bit as you go through. This is the first time that I've done such dealt with these procedures, to be honest. So to rent facilities and do all these things, a learning curve. So with the help of Dr. Tiana, we came up with a great handbook. Those are on the website now, so anybody that wants to rent our facilities, they really see a nice handbook that's really appeasing, that really helps people understand what they're going to get when they rent a facility here at Chelmsford. Contracts and management, so just some things about that. Having a contract for a renter, for somebody to come in, so they know exactly what's expected of them, how to pay, when to pay, exactly what they need to do, how do they need to leave for the facility, all those things. So that's been developed, along the way, and it's really working well now. The fields, if you've driven by, I don't think there's many times there's people not on them. So they're really, used by everybody. All of our youth programs that need fields are getting to use them. And we have 2 major renters in there that have booked almost 300 hours a year, so that's really been great. Total income to date, about $46,557, and that's to this minute, really, and accounts receivable to this minute, so bills out, the people owe us another $34,000. That doesn't count, what's coming potentially in the winter if we decide that we are going to plow these fields, and again with the spring as well. Fundraising. So there's always a lot of questions about why we fundraise, how we fundraise, and what are the reasons, I guess, So procedures-wise, and I think it's good that we're talking about it, because I think people think that, we just haphazardly go out there and try to raise money and collect all the bills from people. And I think there's a little more that goes into it than that. So when a program wants to fundraise, whether it be an athletic program, and I don't need to get into it, but an activity at the school, there's a form that needs to be filled out. The coach fills it out. Or a captain fills it out with the coach's permission, and then it goes to myself and the principal have to sign off that it's a worthy fundraiser. Income from those fundraisers get deposited into the student activity account, and that's basically the account that the principal has the discretion over. So any check that's requested after they've done the fundraiser, the student activity leader gets the request, writes the check, and then Principal Caleri needs to sign the check. So that's kind of the checks and balances to how we spend some of that money. Why fundraise? Well, obviously, it should be kind of an easy, we fundraise to pay for non-budgeted items. And so the department, is it underfunded? That becomes a question, why do we need to fundraise so much? Well, apparently, we don't have enough money to pay for exactly what we need. So is it a shoestring budget? I wouldn't say it's a shoestring budget. We do well, but obviously if we're fundraising for $40,000 or $50,000 a year, it could be underfunded. And could we put that 40 or 50K into the budget and not have to fundraise? Potentially. What are some of the things we do with that money? Uniforms. I don't know if you know this, but we don't pay for uniforms traditionally. All right, so it's never been in the budget. The athletic department, it's never been a line item in the budget. So for years before I got here, and it's continued, and we're trying to change that year to year, the teams, when they needed a uniform, they went out, they fundraised, and they bought the uniform. Many times a team would fundraise to buy a uniform, and there are some teams that are better at it than others. So sometimes it doesn't look that equitable. A team might get new uniforms more often. It's because that team decided to go out and fundraise a little more often. We're just in a situation where that's just been the practice. That's how we do it. The last couple of years, we've been able to do a little bit better. And I've tried to angle some uniforms that were really in trouble and been able to pay for them. But for the most part, we still need to fundraise to buy those uniforms, warm-ups. Each team always the captains get together, they want to get something, they want to buy sweatshirts, so they go out and they fundraise for those things. Some of the uniforms, like track or cross-country, or swimming, those uniforms have to be bought every year because the kids keep them. So that's why we charge the kids for the uniforms, or they can fundraise for them, because they actually keep them. All the other uniforms we collect at the end of the year, and we hand them out again the following year. And equipment, obviously, the big push there for equipment, really our football program. Our football program probably raises the most money. Well, they spend the most money. And just, kind of an example of something that they would need to buy. Just recently, they had to spend $1,000 on a one-man sled. If you know anything about football, it's a big iron machine with a dummy on the top of it, and they use it to push around, to learn how to block, learn how to tackle, and those things. They buy that stuff for themselves. I don't buy that for them. It's not in our regular budgeted items. So those are some of the reasons. That's just one example I thought of off the top of my head. I think there's a little more, but we some teams now, it's the age of strength training. So, so we traditionally have a weight room, obviously, and we man it with a stipend employee to go in and watch it after school for an hour a day or an hour and a half a day. But teams need more than that. So a lot of teams in the off-season do some strength training. Some of their fundraising money would go to an outside agency to help them strength train. That's another reason they fundraise in some of the expenditures that we've had lately that I was trying to give you examples of for tonight. That's the end. Any questions?
Questions,
I have some questions. The number you gave, the 1,453, those are all the students who have paid a fee of $300, or have some of those students paid it more than once?
Good question. So some of them paid it more than once. So some
your
kids,
income's more than $435,600. It's
less.
No. So not every kid pays $300. So if you play a sport a second time, it's $250. A third sport, it's $200. I'd say, like, if you were to average that, you're probably at about, I haven't done the math, but $250, I would guess. A lot of kids play two sports, but.
okay. So the 1,453 is every kid who plays a sport, regardless if they pay more than one. That could be.
It's so it's every participant.
Okay.
So one,
Okay.
Scott Moreau could be
Got it.
counted 3 times in those participants.
Okay. Do all coaches run camps for their sports?
No.
How many of our coaches run camps for our sports?
Catching me a little off guard, but I would say 3 to 5.
Oh, they charge for those, so I'm curious. where does that money go?
So same idea. So some coaches have like an LLC, right? So that money would go to their coaching or their business, and so they make money off of running camps. Some coaches run a camp for a fundraiser. If they were running a camp as a business, they would pay the district for use of the facility and all those.
So it's
kind
like
of
running a tutoring business.
Yeah, I guess it could be similar to that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I had a complaint, it's specific, fundraising for track uniforms, and they never got them
When? This year?
last spring.
Last spring? There was no fundraising for track uniforms last spring.
Maybe it was the fall then? One of the two tracks.
No, so what's funny about that is our track teams traditionally don't fundraise, which is why we charge the kids for their uniforms. This fall, really, has been like the first push for the cross-country kids to fundraise. The cross-country kids have always done like car washes and things like that. But the track teams specifically, winter and spring, I can't remember a fundraiser they've done.
So are they paying more in addition to the 300 for their uniform?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's it. That's all I have.
Do you have a list? Do you have a list of the different sports that have had new uniforms?
I do. I
You
mean,
know,
not with me, but I
right.
have one. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I'm just curious as to how many, get new uniforms.
So really the goal is to get 3 to 5 sets a year and then keep those for 3 to 5 years, depending on wear and tear. That would be the perfect scenario if we budgeted money to buy uniforms, So that's what I've tried to institute, but it's hard because we don't have it in the line item. So, you save a little here, save a little there, and take care of some team that really needs it that doesn't fundraise as well or anything like that. An example this year would be we really needed to get new field hockey uniforms. Every so often the National Federation changes rules on what kind of uniform you can wear. Well, it just so happens they changed the rule on field hockey and volleyball this year. So we needed to buy new ones. I didn't have the money in the budget to do it, so this is what I said, listen, I think I can get half of it for you guys, raise the other half, which they went out and did, and now we're waiting for them to come in now. So it's just an example of how we've made it work, to be honest.
Yeah, it would be interesting to know, which teams fundraise for their uniforms and which teams are charged for the uniforms. You don't even have to do the swim thing, because I already know that, at
Yeah.
least with the boys' swim thing, because...
They buy their own.
Yeah, I was going through stuff, found my son's
Yeah.
swim.
It's really swim,
They don't want your
track,
donations.
cross-country. They don't want to be passing uniforms down
Yeah.
to each other.
No, I understand that piece. And I know that when the other two went through, that was track.
Yeah.
But I hate to admit this, I just texted to ask him if he ever had uniform, and he said, no, they never fundraised for uniforms, and he didn't keep it either. He had to turn it in.
Yeah, but they
For the
charge
track.
for the uniform.
How long ago was that?
Fundraiser.
A while. But I was just curious to find out, because he would be, remember that kind of thing. So I don't have any other, questions about that this evening.
I just, Bill Ricker got changed in terms of their division, right, just recently?
Oh, football, yeah. Yeah.
Are there any other discussions in the MVC about realignment or anything like that?
It's a constant discussion, and to be honest, I won't say I wasted my day the other day, but spent about 6 or 7 hours at an athletic directors meeting for the Merrimack Valley Conference about that one thing, and it continues to be a discussion. Lately, I've been on the losing end of my idea. It's starting to grow a little bit, but yeah, I mean, we realign based on parity in the league, so strength of program, and we go sport by sport, and it really is a good model, except when the MIAA stepped in and changed the football playoff system, it really kind of, lack of a better term, messed up our alignment system, how we do things. So, for instance, she said Barica moved down. Ironically, Barica's in Division II in football through the MIAA, which is surprising to us because we played Barica for so long thinking we're in the same division.
Yeah.
They just recently moved them down to Division II. We're still in Division I. Tewksbury, a smaller school than Barica, in Division III in the MIAA playoffs, was moved up by the athletic directors because they've been so successful. I can't say I totally agree with the decision, but looking at the data that we were given to make the decision that day, that's what the athletic directors decided to do. My personal opinion is we should change how we break up our league.
Is there anybody looking to get into the league or anyone threatening to leave?
Yeah, good question. Nobody's threatened to leave. We had a school come to us last school year, in the beginning of last school year, Masconomet Regional. Had expressed some interest because they're in the Cape Ann League and they're the biggest team in that league, and it's really not a great fit for them, and the other teams in that league would love them to leave. But geographically, it's not a great fit for us, but there's been some talk about them potentially joining our league. Really, to be honest, I guess I'm saying this on TV, you know, as a community, as a league,
They can only see the back
You don't
of your
have to
head.
guess, you are.
we need to do something about Central Catholic in our league, and having a Catholic school that does not play by the same rules compete against all our teams. And I think that's something as a league we need to start really talking about.
I have a couple of questions. First, thanks for coming out. This was a good presentation. It's good to see this, and I hope we make this a regular feature. $45,000 to $50,000 annually raised in fundraising. Does that include boosters?
No.
So that's another, and I know they make considerable donations to the team supplies. Is that right?
Not team supplies, they basically fund all of our awards and all of our varsity jackets.
Okay.
But very rarely will they get into buying supplies for the team. We have requested in the past for things and they've done it, but we try not to do that to them
Okay,
because they
so-
have to raise so much money to do that other stuff.
Yeah. So most of it then is as you say, jackets and,
Yeah.
and the awards nights. Okay, that's good.
And scholarships.
And scholarships.
scholarships.
That's the
Right,
biggest. yeah.
Right. The student athlete surveys, again, I think that's an excellent idea. A couple of questions there. Is there any intent to solicit parent feedback?
We've talked about it, so there's no intent to do it this year, but we've definitely talked about it. We'll continue to talk about it. For me, it's more about finding a way to do it successfully, you know?
Yeah.
How to implement it, how to let them be surveyed. Is it electronic? Is it bring them in? So that's those kinds of questions that we really haven't answered yet.
Yeah, okay. And while I understand that sort of information is basically a work product, we're not going to see detailed breakdowns. Is there some way that you can give us some kind of an overview, an aggregate of that data, even if it's not broken out by team, but maybe by season, just as a way of looking at the student satisfaction with their experience?
I mean, I'm sure there is. That we use SurveyMonkey, and the reports that generates is really unbelievable. So, yeah, you could do it by season, you could do it by...
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to single anybody out.
Yeah.
But I think it's great that we have that ability to take a look at that, and,
Yeah.
and I think that's something that's worth keeping an eye on.
Yeah, and in the beginning, like I said, when I was hesitant to do this and I didn't love it, but the more I start talking to people about it, I think the more it'll show our strengths than anything else,
Yeah,
you know?
that-
So
that's
it's probably a good thing.
That's a good point, I think. There's no reason to be afraid of success.
Yeah.
Finally, on the turf, a couple of questions there. If someone had a question or wanted to see usage patterns, is there some place online that they could go to see what the bookings are and what the bookings have been?
Yeah, so right on the athletic website is our scheduling system, and they can do it by day, they could do it by organization, they could do it by facility, and it's real. I shouldn't say it's easy, but if you play with it a little bit,
if you play with it a little bit,
you can do it. Yeah.
Okay, and so yeah, you can look at it by month or by
by
field
month, day,
or-
field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the money that's been received to date and the amount outstanding, does that include anything for the naming rights?
No.
Leave it there.
Okay.
Nope.
So that would still be out
Like
to be
it's like
received, I
a
think,
bonus,
at this
yeah.
point. Is that right?
Yes. Believe we've already received half of the 25,000
For this year?
from NRT, yes.
Yep.
And
Okay.
and they're still working on signs, working with the sign maker, obviously. We
Okay.
have to approve that as well.
Okay.
Scott, just a quick clarification, for coaches who run camps, it's not mandatory for students?
No.
And And they,
Most of the camps that are run are for, not most, all of them are run for youth organization, not high school kids, elementary and middle school kids.
okay.
That our coaches run. They're not allowed to run camps for their own kids. It's illegal.
Right, that was a question I
Yeah.
thought I knew that piece. And folks who work for us, they rent the facilities?
Yeah, so anybody that, if they're going to do a camp where they're going to profit personally from it, they need to pay for the use of the facility. If they're going to do a camp that's going to help the program benefit, as a fundraiser, then they pay the lowest rate that we can charge them on the facility.
Right, if it's for-profit, then they pay the
Correct.
for-profit rate. There's no in-house.
100%, yeah.
Do you have a list of the coaches in the camps and when they run?
It wouldn't be hard to make it up, yeah. I mean,
You could probably find it on the
Yeah.
Right,
on the
right. On the website.
website.
Right, but it's easier for me to ask him to do the work than for me to do it. I have so much on my plate.
Yeah.
So if we had a list of that, so it would be the coach and whatever the thing is, and then whether or not those coaches would share what the participation rate is.
Mhm.
Because I think some of the things that we've heard is if the students don't participate in a camp, they can't make the team. And so that is of a concern because there are students that may not be able to afford it or have the time to do so,
Yeah.
or the transportation to get there. So that's one of the concerns
Yeah,
that some
again,
of us do have.
Yeah, our coaches don't run camps for their kids. So it's it's not really accurate, obviously. Our coaches run camps potentially for the youth organizations. They're not supposed to be able to run a camp for their particular team. It's out of season practice and, it's against MIA rules.
Yeah, that's
They can
not
re-
even, that's not an internal
That's not an internal rule,
regulation
that's a
or policy.
state-
That's
state
a MIAA,
association rule.
yeah.
Right. But I still would like
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Yeah, I could put that together for you.
All right?
Yeah.
Scott, thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks, Scott.
All right.
Okay, next item on the agenda, 3.0 financial update.
Okay.
Before you start, there's just one thing. Sheila Pichette, the chair of the FinCom, has requested that Anne Marie come to the Finance Committee meeting on Thursday night, if at all possible. She
Okay.
wanted to come up and ask you, but we kind of pushed her aside because we were live. So she did ask that if
in
that's
a
a
public
possibility.
meeting, yeah.
And so what you want to do is to, discuss that with Sheila.
Okay, we'll, you know what,
You can have that
we can
discussion
take this
off,
up at
at the end of the meeting, just
different
to think
time.
about what the request is.
Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you.
You're welcome. In terms of just giving our financial update, obviously we had a few folks in the room. I wish they were actually still here. Ben, I think you summarized a whole lot of different feelings in terms of where we are as a school district. Our school district has a lot of pride. Nikki Bettinelli had mentioned that, and folks aren't necessarily feeling that right now. We could take a look at all of our accomplishments, and you listed some. We can list dozens. And we've also done that on a shoestring budget, I believe your words. To be sitting here right now having these types of conversations is absolutely, I'm so sorry for that. It's not where we want to be as a school district. Decisions that have been made were not based on the needs of children. They were not made in the best interest of our school district, and that's essentially how we pride ourselves in terms of running our school district. We put kids first. Folks who read from our strategic plan, who read from my website, that was not rhetoric. That was heartfelt, and I believe in every decision that we make. We have again been moving our district forward. As you know, we had a summary last evening, a summary at the Finance Committee last Thursday in terms of a shortfall that we have essentially in our FY15 budget due to overruns in the FY14 budget. That is not something that's common for Chelmsford Public Schools. As the auditors from Powers and Sullivan had indicated, they had redone the steps of the audit from the previous auditors. and found us to be in very good shape in the 5 years I've been a superintendent, and for the 15 years I've been an employee. We have had some lean times. We've had mid-year layoffs. We have had reductions and restructuring and reorganizations. Rarely do we have an overrun. I can't think of a time in my time here. That happens to districts sometimes. Because again, when we talk about a level service budget, our level service is not necessarily as predictable as you may see. Some budget line items are flexible. You look at a revenue issue, and you look at a spending issue. How we dealt with that budget overrun is not something in which not something that was well done. Currently, I'm engaging in an investigation to look at exactly how that happened. We talked about having an auditor come in. We talked about the possibility of MASBO, though we heard something to the contrary from our treasurer in terms of that may not be the organization of his choice. But what we can do, it's my responsibility in terms of the person who's in charge of the operations of the district, to be able to understand it, to be able to ensure that we are never in this position again. We have had lean times in the past. Again, any decisions that we've made have been in the best interest of kids, staff, and the community. So again, to be sitting here, it's difficult. Been superintendent for 5 years. Absolutely love my job. This is my dream job. Sometimes I have to do things that are awful. We have the number we're working from for our FY14 carryover is $480K. That's the number we're working from, and we've stated that. Realizing that we have that shortfall, you have to take action or it compounds. And when you have an issue like that, you need to make decisions. You need to put together scenarios. You need to put together options, and then you put them before you. There's never a good option. They're all terrible. What we looked at as an administrative team is when you look at an organization, we have $50 million budget, $36 million is salaries. So in order to make an effort to reduce the budget, you look at salaries. We had put in a budget freeze to start the fiscal year, a half freeze, in terms of spending half of the budgets to review it again come October, November. We had also put in a freeze on conferences for our staff as we were looking at this particular issue. Realizing we had to take action again, putting together some priorities, we looked at salaries. You try to make cuts should you have to be in this position, and I know this community has had to do this in the past. We've looked at overrides and so forth. These being abrupt, I think caught people off guard. The timing is never good. We looked at administrative positions that did not service more than one particular area. We looked at administrative positions that did not have a teaching component to it. Again, looking to keep the cuts far away from the students. We have administrators who currently teach, and to disrupt their schedule in October, we felt was something that, again, of the choices we had to make, that was not one we wanted to make. We also looked at positions that did not impact student safety. For example, in our middle schools, we have assistant principals. In our high school, we have deans. So those are positions that we did not, that we took out of the equation. Overall, in terms of looking at the three positions we did cut, again, being the superintendent, I get to make decisions that are just terrible. I worked with Val for 15 years. I did not underestimate her ability, her commitment to this district, or her just her overall person and her ability as an educator. She's fantastic. And I sat with her face to face and explained the situation. I did that with two other administrators that were not as well known to me as Valerie. John Kittredge was with us for 8 years. I was on the hiring team for John. Jen Zulli was new to us for a few months. I didn't have the opportunity to really get to know her too well. Lovely person, wonderful educator. These are things that we have to do. And we can talk about why we have to do it, and that's part of my job to be able to present that and the committee and so forth. If you don't make cuts such of this nature earlier in the year, the savings is not as great. As we had shared this with these folks individually, we worked with their departments immediately the next morning and worked with their association as well as the committee, the school committee, and notified them. We met with the science department, the English department, and Anne Marie met with the library departments. So we could tell them face-to-face before it was made publicly. And then our elementary principals worked at the elementary level to do that as well, because an email of this nature or some other type of announcement would be inhumane. Going forward, we need those positions. Again, this was not a decision based on what's best for Chelmsford Public Schools. It was a decision made on economics. We've been working for years on a very tight budget. We've been proud of the efforts that we've made in terms of efficiencies. We have had high demands to move our district forward, be it state mandates, which have been many, or self-imposed mandates through our strategic plan, and we've been able to reorganize positions. We've made difficult decisions that most school districts and municipalities are afraid to make, but we've done that in the best interest of our kids. This year we came up short. Again, we can talk about how we got there, but bottom line, how we handled it was not handled well. We own that piece. In order to fix it, we needed to make necessary cuts. Also along those lines, this is the first committee meeting, the school committee meeting in terms of, since then, that we've had the opportunity to talk about this. Not something necessarily we share at the FinCom meeting or share at our meeting last evening. We've also not filled a tech position to the tune of about $40,000. We've also had a reduction in contracted services to the tune of about $86,000. And looking at line item savings to the tune of about $47,000 to $50,000 for a net savings so far of about $350,000. As Barbara had mentioned last night, talking about substitutes, that's a line that has overrun. We're looking at ways of how we engage substitutes for our students, for our staff members, and we believe we could bring that line item down to a significant number. That being said, I believe that we would not incur any more staffing cuts this year. I know this committee has discussed somewhat the issue of going to either the Finance Committee or to the town perhaps for free cash that was mentioned earlier to adjust a one-year fix for this hole in our budget. That's embarrassing. At the same time, I would advocate for that for our kids and for our educational programming. Our FY15 budget is lean, and I look at myself in terms of advocation of funding for our school department. We have, like every other department in the town, we've been level service, and we work cooperatively, and we take a level service budget, 3%, 3.5%, whatever it is, and we make it work, and we've done that, and we've done that proudly. Going forward, to make sure that before we go to the public for more money, this committee knows that we were looking to advocate for full-day kindergarten. Before we do that, we wanted to make darn well sure that our house was in order, but also too that we had that we could honestly say that we have trimmed any fat in our district, that we have reorganized and worked hard to meet the needs of the kids with living within our means. Again, we've prided ourselves on that. At the same time, right now, that's the irony is not lost on me. Again, my job is to make sure that I go back in with the committee's support, and look at how we got here, concretely find out what that number is potentially for this year. I understand the committee's reluctance to go to the selectmen or go to the FinCom, without a concrete number, and we're committed to doing that. And that, that essentially is just the overall update that I have for you. Again, in the last few meetings we've had publicly, you've been walked through essentially how we got here. I just wanted to put that forth for you folks, because we've not had a chance to discuss the cuts and that piece of it. Be happy to take any questions.
Questions, comments?
Well, as far as free cash, I mean, the comment was made about what free cash is, and it really isn't, free. It's just there because of budgets or other things coming into the town. But they would have. It's easy, and I would think it's easy enough to have an idea on how much you initially could ask for. Because John Souza talked about the invoices, and they have all of them, and they just have to add them up as far as what that is. And part of one of the warrants usually is unpaid bills. I don't want to do this either, but anyway, you have that you can do it in that capacity and request, so money can be transferred in. If that was done, and you could identify what those unpaid bills were, not maybe all of them, and we absorb what we can, but if it's a significant number, am I not close enough to this?
You're not.
Sorry. Oh, the mic's aren't on? Oh, great. Anyway, if we were to request that money, and money was to come in and it offset enough of it, would there be any reconsideration of the personnel decisions that you made? I know that we're not going to go into the details. You just ask it as a question?
I'm just going to point out that except for the comments we took tonight from the town treasurer, and I'm not entirely clear on the implications there. There are no unpaid bills.
Well, they're trying.
That's why, and that's part of the problem. That what I think what should have happened was that these overruns should have been flagged at the end of the last fiscal year. Then they would have been marked unpaid bills, and then the procedure would have been, as you say, to go to town meeting and ask them to deal with it somehow.
Well, he did.
But in fact, what happened was the bills got paid, and they got paid with FY15 money, which now creates a budget shortfall, an expected budget shortfall for FY15. And it also, unfortunately, takes away the option of going to town meeting and requesting that relief for the unpaid bills. That's not to say that we can't go to town meeting.
There was at least one unpaid bill, that there was a vendor that came forward.
Well, I think
Yes,
that's entirely new information. Like I say, I'm not entirely clear on what that situation is. That's something that we've known for about half an hour. We need to investigate that. If there are unpaid bills, I agree. One way to deal with them would be to look for relief from town meeting. But the major problem is not unpaid bills. It's that the bills were already paid, and now we expect a budget shortfall as a result.
Okay, but one of the things that, and it is misinformation, there's confusion and so forth. I'm hearing that there are resubmittals of invoices. If there's resubmittals of any invoices, that means those bills haven't been paid.
Again, my understanding, and clearly we're going to have to come to a better conclusion to this than me telling you what I heard at a meeting, and I think that'll be the objective of next week's FinCom meeting.
I'm only reacting to what information he gave us.
Those bills that were resubmitted at the end of FY14 got through and got paid.
Right, but he sat this evening and told us about another group.
Yes,
$114,000 that were just submitted last Friday.
Right, and so I'm reacting
Right,
to
if
what
that's-
the town treasurer has, or
Right.
financial director, whatever his title is telling us and just requesting that we still have some time to go through this, and so
Well,
we're
I
asking
think
about comments relative to budget.
So here's the thing. If, in fact, there are $114,000 of unpaid bills from FY14, then yes, I agree. The proper procedure for dealing with that would be to go to town meeting and see if they are willing to give us money to pay those bills. If they're not, we're going to have to look at an unrestricted account of our own. That though would be in addition to the $480,000 deficit that we are currently looking at in the FY15 budget. If these $114,000 of unpaid bills are truly new, then they're not included in the previous calculations.
Right, but we've already reduced that 460 whatever by the layoffs and the other. So we're talking.
Our expected savings
Right. Yeah.
are in that 350 range.
Right.
And we will and we're going to have to manage that.
I think, if I heard Evelyn correctly, there was another question involved there that didn't have anything to do with what we were just talking about, and that was if we came up with money from town meeting, or as far as that goes, any other budget profits, whatever you want to say, would we consider putting people back in that have been released?
Can we?
Can we? Am I correct? Wasn't that in there?
Yes.
Okay.
And if you don't want to have to answer it now, you
Yeah.
can think about it and figure it out later, but that is a question. If you have the finances, do you then go back and reconsider?
And that is a question. I mean, currently, as the committee knows, we're engaged in impact bargaining, and really puts me at a disadvantage in terms of saying anything this time.
Sure.
Just so people know what we're doing.
Yeah.
In light of some of the other information this evening, it was not only the fact of the accreditation and how that may impact things, but also the services as a result of having the licensed librarian. And so I would like to know what the impact will be relative to that, the e-books and so forth.
Sure.
Because on the Digital Learning Advisory Committee, they want to certify through a 13-week course the technical directors in all of the schools that's coming down the pike. So I don't know how that's going to impact us either. So therefore, if they tie that to anything,
Sure.
then we would have to be careful in dealing with that particular issue, which is something relatively new, which I found out like two weeks ago, among other things. Just as a comment in terms of my viewpoint, I mean, I've been through some very difficult financial times with my history on this committee, and it never gets any easier. I don't like letting people go, especially when they do impact quite a bit of our educational system. So I would, I know you can't make any comments, but I want to make mine relatively simple, is that if we do find that we do have the finances, to strongly recommend you make reconsiderations in some areas, because I don't know what the financial impact is going to be that we've been shared with this evening on what we may lose as a result of not having those people in those places, or at least one of them. I mean, there's probably some other stuff, too. I was curious about the timeline, because I know that it was shared at the Finance Committee that there was different times that the administration met in order to make the cuts and to make the decisions and so forth. So we had a meeting last summer where, in July or in August, where we were talking about moving money from one line item to another, that we have line item autonomy, and I wanted to do that. I'd like to know if that did occur in order to try to offset things, and where those line items were
Sure.
of what it was that we had in light of this information. I know that maybe we did vote in order to approve the budget generally.
Yeah.
But I didn't see, we took whatever it was excess over here because the encumbrances was 95%, and over here it was 103% or 105%, so you're offsetting the 5%, just as an example. So I'm interested to know what that is. And also, when did we really realize that we were having difficulties? And if we have any in the future, I'd like to know well in advance rather than hearing from people in the community that there are no substitutes in classrooms or there are no people in the schools or that you're moving people around, because I don't think that, I know that we were told things are lean and things are tight, but I don't think we were told some of those specifics. And then we hear a lot of different things. So anything that will impact our financial situation, I'd like to know more in advance. Please.
Fair enough.
I'm done right
You're
now.
good. You're good.
I know.
Barbara?
She's still older than I am, so. I had to get that in. No, it's a lot to take in tonight. That's about all I can say. I have definite concerns about some of the information that was presented this evening, and we will get answers.
Al?
It's just too complicated. Guess, I made points last night that I just quickly, without belaboring them, the money issue is there, but as you saw tonight, the second point that I made last night was that we have a combination trust, emotion, anger kind of a situation too. And just as we go forward, the superintendent has a really difficult situation because some of the hard choices are going to feed into that other aspect of the thing, and it's just really, I feel, I think all of the people on our side of the table, school committee and administration, are just torn by that whole thing, and it's really sad. That's it.
Well, I will agree that this is a complicated situation. And one of the challenges is keeping a clear path through. It's easy to get off track. It's easy to start out working on one issue and find yourself discussing another. And I think that's going to be one of the challenges that we face as a committee and furthermore as a town in resolving this. I think leaving aside the issues of the morale and the community for now, in financial terms, the first thing that has to happen is we must understand what the shortfall is. If there's an additional $114,000 that we are now short, we need to know this. If that's not correct, that it's somehow related to something else, or that it's already included in the 480 number, we need to know that. We have to define the magnitude of the problem. Unfortunately, if we wait for the full audit to be completed, we will not know until November, at the earliest. We have to do the best we can do. As John Souza suggested tonight, at some point it's just math. You add up the invoices. That has to be a first step. And then we're going to have to go ahead and make decisions based on the results of that step. We will still do a full audit because we can't have another surprise down the road. We have to make sure that we understand exactly what the problem is. But in the shorter term, we have to do the best we can with the information that's available. And I would agree that number, we need to have a solid number before town meeting. Once that happens, clearly we have to revisit the management practices. I understand what John was concerned about, in that there's always human beings involved in audits, and people have prior relationships. That said, I think MASBO is the right organization to do this audit with. I think they are the ones who are basically dedicated to developing best practices for this particular situation. We can try to find somebody else, but I think we would be remiss if we did not at least include a MASBO management audit as part of our response to this. If you want to make the case that we should go beyond that, I guess I'm not going to say no to that. It depends on who else is out there, but I think it wouldn't make any sense not to get the views of the organization that does this on a regular basis, on a daily basis. And I think, we just have to, if we get auditors from the association, let's make sure they don't have any personal connections.
Make that request.
Yeah, there are many, many people involved across the state. Some know our business managers, some know our other administrators, or some of us perhaps. Many do not. And I think I'm not so concerned about finding an impartial, skeptical auditor to think that we should not avail ourselves of that resource.
I think that cloud has already been set, and I think we are sabotaging our credibility by choosing MASBO. I think that if Powers and Sullivan can do it, then we should invite them to do it.
Well, we'll ask about that, but Powers and Sullivan my understanding is that they would do the financial audit in terms of how to run a school business office. That's not necessarily what they do. We'll inquire into it. That's why, I don't think that's a permanent cloud. And again, if you want to say we should have more than one set of eyes look at this, I'm good with that. But I don't see how we can function if we cut ourselves off from the resources that are available to us.
No, I see what you're saying. I think that he made a valid point. And I think that, it's their profession. You don't want to, I don't think you want to find fault with members of your profession. I think you are maybe perhaps reluctant to. I think that's what John was saying, that it's one of the club.
I think that there are different things that you can also ask MASBO about that. I did call Glenn Kuchar, and I'm going to email him tomorrow. He's going to send me the name of somebody that does do school audits, because the Mass Association of School Committees knows people that are out there. And we can certainly ask, what their advice would be as far as MASBO goes, and a variety of other things along that line, because we do pay dues, so we might as well use them.
Again, MASBO was recommended both by the DOR and by DESE. So.
Well, one can be the financial practices and procedures.
Yes.
And the other one can be
That's what MASBO was recommended for.
Right. And the other one, though, can be to know what our exposure is in terms of the numbers and the finances.
And that's what Powers and Sullivan is.
Right. And I think that by doing more than one, we're covering a lot of bases so that we have a very clear picture of exactly where we are today and how we got here.
And also, too, whenever you have an audit, one of the things that you look forward to, if you can look forward to anything from an audit, is suggestions. Mm-hmm. And when you look at municipal finance and school finance, it's such a specialized area. I would like to have somebody, along with, Powers and Sullivan, be able to provide, just going forward, never mind looking back, and provide those checks and balances,
Right.
controls that
Exactly.
need to be in place.
Who knows who knew what when? Who should know? And what's the timeline of the decision-making process?
Yeah.
Okay.
Al.
Sorry, yeah.
It would seem to me that at some point in the near future, the administration probably will need to sit down with the town treasurer and town manager and so forth to reassure each other of the dollar figure they're all working with. It's my understanding that in one of the small meetings in the spring or early summer that Finance Committee wasn't represented, which seemed to me really strange.
The audit meeting last week.
That would have been, yeah, I think that would have been the meeting 2 Mondays ago.
Yeah, with the auditors.
Okay.
Oh.
Well, maybe somebody couldn't go. I don't know. But I mean, that's certainly an important party to be involved in any discussion that goes on. So I it's not a huge deal, but anticipating that there'll be further discussion, they should be part of it, I think. At least so they know what the discussion is.
I would agree with that. I'm not sure, well, I'm not going to go.
That's what I was told. I don't know. But I mean, certainly it's an obvious missing party if it is the case.
I agree. There's no way that we can solve this problem without FinCom. We need their active involvement.
It's just, check, when we meet, check and see who's coming and who's not coming.
And don't forget anybody.
And just to Al's, and just to Al's point, on my agenda for tomorrow morning is to reach over to our town accountant, our town treasurer, and because it has to start there.
Yeah, there's no sense of exchanging information over formal meetings when probably in a half hour, if you listen to each other, you can probably come up with agreement on the same kinds of things.
We're going to start there tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Then we will move along. Item number 4 on the agenda is the academic data update.
I'm going to turn it right over to Dr. Hirsch. Just a very brief presentation for you.
It's only 42 slides, it's fine.
No, this is...
But you can just kind of like go through.
Yeah.
I read it.
If it's any consolation.
This is an annual event for us. We do this every fall, and Linda's put a lot of time and effort into the overview of this data for you, and you have seen it previously in your packet, and she'll begin.
Yep. I'm gonna walk you through the process. So I'll be giving you the overview tonight, which would start with MCAS, go along to AP, SAT, and ACT. When we put together this academic piece and we're looking at it at a district level and then a school level and department level, this is what drives our school improvement plans, helps us create our goals, educator goals, and helps move the district forward. So we're going to start off with MCAS testing. We have very happy students taking MCAS right now. So you'll find that as I go through this whole process, I'll give you a little bit of background and then show you where we are as a town. So on February 9th, 2012, the Massachusetts was granted flexibility with the No Child Left Behind Act. And what you'll see here is that before we were based on the state's 5-level framework, and what we're doing now is that we're moving towards progress and performance indicator, which we're trying to cut the proficiency gap in half. That's the change in the waiver that you'll see at this point. And what they're doing is they're using school percentiles to classify schools into one of 5 categories. So this is an example. This is not our actual data, but just to give you an example, what ends up happening is to reduce the proficiency gap. It's over a 6-year period. It started in 2011, and this slide kind of demonstrates what cutting that proficiency gap looks like. And what you'll see is we're measured now in what's called the Composite Performance Index, otherwise known as the CPI, and how closely all proficiency students are in a particular group. So what basically ends up happening is that 100 is obviously at the top level. They took where school districts were in 2011. They ended up subtracting that from 100, dividing it in half, and adding it back to where that school started off and giving them a 6-year guideline to reduce that proficiency gap in half. So that's the formula. The second piece that you'll see here is the performance and progress index, and what we're measured in a few different areas. We're measured in cutting that proficiency gap in half for both ELA, math, and science. They're also looking at ELA growth, math growth, and for the high school level, annual dropout rate and cohort graduation rate. And what ends up happening as well is that there's additional points awarded that if you can move 10% of the students from the warning failure category or move students up to the advanced category from proficient. All that is calculated, and then schools are then classified into levels, and then districts are classified based on the lowest performing school in their district. And here you'll see these are the 5 levels. So when we receive our accountability reports, what happens is they come in layers. So we have a district layer, we have the school layer, which tells the schools what their accountability level is, reasons for their designations, they look at the different percentiles, and then we end up with that summary of school accountability information. The second layer just gives us our annual PPI figures, the points that were awarded for those different areas that I just told you about. And layer 3 is a detailed data about each student group for ELA, math, science, and again, for the high school, that dropout rate and graduation rate. So here again, you'll just see an example. These are how the layers of the reports look. So this would be that first layer, that's that overview. You move to your second layer, which will then give you your data. And then third, you can look at specifically ELA, math, science, and so forth. So where's Chelmsford in all of this? The first thing we do is we look at our district level. So these are all of our schools combined together. Chelmsford is a level 2 school, and which means that one or more of our school is designated or classified into a level 2 category. And based on this information, we're working towards getting to that 75% or higher PPI in order to show progress. So then we take a look at our individual schools. We are level 2 in all of our schools except for the Chelmsford High School, which is at a level 1 school. Now, when we're looking at this data this year, one thing you have to keep in mind is that we did the park pilot, like most of the school districts did in the Commonwealth, and Southrow, Harrington, and Byam. We had 2 classes in each of those schools that our students were opted out of MCAS due to the park testing. So we don't have our full data for 3 of our schools. Southrow was grade 4, 2 math classes. Harrington was grade 3, 2 classes for ELA, and Byam was grade 3, 2 classes for ELA. So I'm going to go through those layers that we talked about, and we're going to talk about CHS, where CHS has the competency determination for graduation requirement for our students. So when you look at CHS, the first thing that we look at is to take a look at all students in our high needs category. And the reason we look at high needs is it's a combination of our ELL, our students with disabilities, and our low-income students. But then when you go through these reports, you could look at each one of those categories separately. The high needs category was based out of a need that you need for a subgroup, you need 30 or more students in order to get enough appropriate data. So when you look at high needs, it's a combination of those 3 students, but then you could look at them individually if you needed to.
When did Center School become non-Title I?
Center School is a Title I school this year.
No.
That's level 1.
No, in the slide before this.
A level 1 school this year.
Non-Title I.
Last year, they were not a Title I. Harrington was our Title I school.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and then this year, Center and Harrington are our Title I schools.
All right.
Sorry.
That's what I am.
Too many same numbers.
I know.
No, it's okay.
My head is spinning.
So when you look at the second layer at CHS, and again, we do this for every single school. I'm giving the overview of where we are as a district, and then I'll summarize that for you. But when you look at the second layer of the school, you're seeing here, for example, so in English Language Arts, we're meeting the criteria for CPI, SGP, in English Language Arts, as well as mathematics. In science, we meet the CPI. There is no growth data in science because they give the test in grades 5, 8, and then again in 10. And then we're meeting our annual cohort graduation rate at 100%. We go back to the next layer. This is where we look at specifically where our baseline CPI is for each one of the areas, ELA, math, and science. We see where we are, what our target was, and how we met that target. So again, you'll see that at CHS, we're not only meeting that target, we're above target. And then we do one other thing that's not required by the DESE, but this is what we do. We break it down to the department level. So each grade level receives what their CPI is, what their growth data is. They look at trends, and not only do they look at trends, and it's the second part of the piece that you wouldn't be able to see on here, we look at the different standards and their strands or domains, depending on, what the subject matter is, and we work with the teachers to find out, what exactly is happening. This is kind of that drill down piece that we do at the department level for all departments and all grade levels. And then last but not least, we look at our comparable districts. This is those DART districts you may have heard of before, and the DART districts are put together based on grade span, total enrollment, and special populations. And you'll see that Chelmsford's highlighted in, we'll call that orange for right now. And then of these 10 districts that we are equal to in terms of those areas of grade span, enrollment, and special populations, Sharon was at the top. So you'll see that enrollment fluctuates anywhere from like 3,500 to maybe 6,000. Our low income within a few points of each other, students with disabilities and ELL percentages that we have of our total enrollment. But what is important to look at is the proficiency, proficient or higher, meaning proficient or advanced in ELA, mathematics, and science. And you'll see as a district in whole, when compared to other districts that are similar to us, we're right up there with there, if not higher than them. As well as the growth, the median growth. Now, 50% is considered 1 year growth for a student, so we're obviously above that as a district in both ELA and mathematics. So what does this all mean? How do we put it all together? So when you look at those different areas that we are actually measured against, which is narrowing the proficiency gap, right now as a whole district, we don't have any significant change in our ELA and for both all students and high needs categories as well as mathematics. That means we're on target, but we need to continue on with that trajectory of meeting that proficiency gap in half by 2017. And science is on target for all students and improved target for high needs categories. And when we look at the growth data, which is both for ELA and mathematics, we are on target for all students in ELA and both for all students in math and in the high needs category, those 3 categories I spoke of. Continuing on with that, at the high school level, our 4-year graduation rate, we're on target for all students and our high needs category, as well as the annual dropout rate. We are on target. And in terms of participation, we usually are at 100% participation. Very rarely you'll see like a 99% participation rate in Chelmsford High School and in all of our schools. So then we have to look at areas that we need to review, places that we need to take a look and see how we can continue with that improvement. We want to look at students with disabilities. We need to close that proficiency gap for both math and science and increase the growth, the student growth percentiles for both math and science. We need to revisit the use of the mass tiered system of support in order to increase these growth and proficiency gap areas. A review of our co-taught model to see how effective it is, if there's any changes that would need to be made, and the use of universal design for learning at all the different levels. So that's wrapping it up for MCAS. I'm going to move on to advanced placement, give you the whole overview, and then we can go back for questions. So again, in the same vein, I'm going to go through what is advanced placement, why do we have it, what are we doing with it, which we offer. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. It just ran across the baccalaureate. We don't offer that, right?
No. So AP reflects what is taught in top introductory college classes. At the end of a course, a student would take an AP exam, which is a standardized exam, and measure how well the students have mastered that college level work. Students who do well on AP exams can possibly earn credit based on the colleges that they go to and placement into advanced courses when they get into college. Classes tend to be pretty fast-paced, more material than the typical high school classroom. Students are required to complete lessons, assignments, homework outside of the regular classroom as well. And they're encouraged to work on their time management, prioritize their workloads, form study groups, and designate that's additional time that's needed to get through an AP course. AP exams and courses. The students are taking them and they're offered to them. So that allows them to move into an upper level college course. They could possibly pursue a double major, have additional time for studies in areas that they would like to pursue when they get to college. These are the AP courses that are offered at Chelmsford High School at this point. Last year, 2013-2014, we opened up the English language composition in grade 11 and environmental and computer science. This year, we have the physics 1 and 2 because there was a change in that area for AP. So we're offering those 2 classes for this year.
As separate classes, as separate APs, or they take one
These are
exam?
all, no, they can take them now. So it was just what was offered last year and then what's happening for this year. So there's that physics 1 and 2.
Okay.
So looking at the 5-year score summary for Chelmsford, so success on an AP exam is considered a 3 or above. And an AP exam with a 3 or above is a strong predictor for persistence in college and earning a bachelor's degree. And what you'll find is in May, we had 232 students who took 419 different advanced placement examinations. And there was 82% of the grades fell between that 3 to 5 range. So it wasn't just 3, it was 3 to 5 range. And AP is on a 5-point scale. So what you'll see here is these are the actual exams and the scores that students took at Chelmsford High School. I have 2 slides for that. You'll notice that a bulk of our students are not only in the 3, but a lot are in the 5 and 4 range. They do quite well in AP. So that's one example of it, and there's the rest of them. And again, we're higher in that 4 and 5 category. Moving on to SAT, Scholastic Aptitude Test. What SAT does is it measures how well you apply your knowledge on the coursework from high school. It's a widely used aptitude test. Most people are pretty familiar with SAT. I know I am as a parent. So what does it measure? It measures critical reading, math, writing, and it's approximately a 4-hour test. Now, the reading requires, you read the passages, you answer the questions, and you work on sentence completion. With math, they're measuring algebra, geometry, statistics, and probability. And the writing is an essay. It's an error identification with grammar and usage. One of the things that's important to note is that you may have heard there's going to be some changes with SAT. In 2015, the PSAT will have those changes, and we'll see the reflection of the changes for SAT for the actual SAT in 2016. And there's going to be 8 key changes to the SAT. It's going to be relevant words and context, command of evidence, essay analyzing. There's going to be a focus math, which is solving data analysis, algebra, advanced math. There's going to be problems in real-world context, analysis in science, history, and social studies, and then founding documents and great global conversations. So you're going to be seeing a lot more of that history and science turned into the SAT.
How will that affect the students who are graduating in 2016?
I asked that question. I talked to Tom Wright, our Director of Guidance, and he said that, because I had asked, is this going to be kind of a phase-in like we did with our MCAS? And he said, no, it wouldn't be a phase-in. I said, so the students that are taking the PSATs right now, the current students that are going to graduate are going to take the regular SAT. It wouldn't affect them. What's going to affect them is our sophomore class. So they're taking that PSAT right now, which is the way we know PSAT, but then next year they'll be taking the actual SAT.
Got it.
So no, they're not going to get that phase in, so that the PSAT that they're actually taking right now is the same one. I had asked that question today because I know my daughter's actually taking it. I'm like, what's the difference? So the SAT results for Chelmsford. So one of the things I don't know if everybody knows is Chelmsford is one of the largest test centers in the Merrimack Valley. And the 13-14 school year, there were 8 Saturday sessions for both the PSAT and the SAT. Chelmsford High School average for the class of 2014 continued to be higher than the Massachusetts average and the national scores. So in the critical reading area, Chelmsford scored a 547, which is 31 points higher than the state average and 50 points higher than the national average. In mathematics, Chelmsford had a 268, which was 37 points higher than the state average and 55 points higher than the national average. And in writing, Chelmsford scored a 526, which is 17 points higher than the state average and 39 points higher than the national average. Now, moving on to ACT, which is the American College Test.
And mostly given to musicians.
No, they just look so good. How can you say no?
School on the West Coast.
How can you say no? So it's a curriculum-based achievement test. It measures college and career readiness in English, mathematics, reading, and science. There's an optional writing piece to it, which is the ACT Plus. It also has non-cognitive components in there. It asks about coursework that students are taking, grade information, interest inventories, and then a student profile section. So it's doing a little bit of both the academic and the non-academic piece. So the ACT is divided into 4 multiple choice tests: the English, math, reading, science, and they're scored on a scale of 1 to 36. There's a composite score, though, for the average of all 4 tests. And the optional writing score is from a 2 to 12. So in looking at our tests, some students in Chelmsford have opted to take both the ACTs and the SATs. Chelmsford High is not a test center. We're not one of the biggest ones in Merrimack Valley. And if you look at our trends, we tend to stay close to that state average. The national average hovers around 21 points of the 36 points, and we're a little bit higher than that. We tend to stay on average of 2 to 4 points higher than that. So at this point, I'm going to be taking questions. I know I threw a lot at you. I actually have a little brochure for you to take away a little bit about MCAS, and we can talk a little bit more about that at a later date. But right now, I'm ready to take some questions. I know it was a lot of information.
But not many acronyms. I appreciate that.
Yes, I'm going to make you a book of acronyms.
No, I don't want that. Use the words.
I try to use the whole word.
Evelyn, you look like you have a nice list of them.
No, I just have a couple of things. On the AP participation, to know how many students are taking each of the courses?
For how many students? Yes, we do. We end up getting a course roster, and we look to see how many of our students actually took the course before they took the AP. It's strongly recommended that if they take the AP course, that they should be taking the AP exam, but then we also see exactly which students are taking the actual AP exam, whether they were in the course or not.
Okay, and I know that a few years back, or maybe even 2 years back, we had taken a look that some of the AP scores had dropped, and so one of the goals, or one of the SMART goals, or whatever it was to ask why, and then to put in place the appropriate, what do you want to call it, action items that needed to be implemented in order to increase those scores. I think calculus was one of them. And so we want to know whether or not we see any downtrends and if anything needs to be changed.
Right, because there's the BC for calculus, and I'd have to go take a look.
You gotta go back and take a look and see what it is, to see how the comparisons are relative to whatever those scores are, to see if whatever it is that was implemented is actually working. And then also maybe to do the analysis with the APs to see if anything else has gone down, if you see anything that is really blatant, if things are going down.
Right, what we'll do is part of that, that department work that I talked about for MCAS, that's actually done for AP and SATs, so the appropriate department looks at that work, and as a high school council, we sit and we did rounds of that as a high school council to say, what are we seeing in trends, is there anything going down, is there anything going up, do we need to take additional action items? If there were specific goals that were written around a couple of years ago, I'd have to go dig those up to see if those actions actually worked.
At the beginning, when you were talking about, I think it's the PPI and all this other stuff, when you do out the formula and that if you have a difference, that if you have more of your students at the top.
Meaning advanced?
Yeah. And then you start doing the differences, do you end up with a lower number so that you have to achieve more, because what do you do when if everyone was at that level? How are you using how do they use the formula?
Right, and I know what you're saying. So in general, what ends up happening, yes, there's been some years that the data was flat. or it could have gone down by, 0.4, we would then be technically responsible for bringing up that data and bringing it forward for the students. What we do is that's when we look at trends and we look at those standards in particular to see if there's something with a certain strand, if there's something with a certain domain, that we see our kids we do that item analysis. That's that really deep work that we do to see if that's something that's an issue. Is it just 1 year, or are we seeing it in multiple strands? I'm pretty sure that we don't have any districts that were at 100% when this waiver went in, when we were working on annual.
I'm sure there aren't either, but it's just one of those hypothetical questions, because when they used to do the growth model and that, well, if you had a 95 and you went to a 96, you didn't grow very much, did you? So it was like it didn't work.
Right, well, that's different. So I know I threw a bunch of acronyms. There's PPI, there's CPI, and then there's growth. The growth model is a little different. That's why a lot of people like the growth model, because whether you're at the top, in the middle, you still have that opportunity to grow. So you have those, they take 2 years, they follow students, they have enough data to follow students for 2 years with the exact same scores, and then on the third year, they see where those students lie in that cohort group. So let's take proficient. So all the students that received a 240, a 242, and then in the third year, they see where all those students lie, same cohort of students, rank order them, 50%'s at the middle, 99's at the top, 1's at the bottom, and they see where that trajectory goes, and that's how they decide if there's a lot of growth. So you still have that opportunity to grow, even though you only went from a 240 to a 242. Well, then if you jumped up to, let's just say a 260, well, you would have had higher growth, unless all your peers went that way.
Right. It was interesting to have it initially introduced at one of the board of directors of MASC, and then have it actually implemented, and then to see where it goes from there. So it's been a kind of like a fun ride with trying to figure out where we're all going to use all this stuff.
Well, and that's why I like to go back to, like, when we were looking at those DART districts, I wanted to see where the growth was. Like, I always go to the growth, because at that point, a group of students are where they are. It is what it is. This is where you are. You have to be able to grow depending on where you are. You need to be able to apply that. So the growth model is important.
And where was the growth when you look at those DART districts?
It was in ELA and mathematics.
Which district had the highest SGP scores?
It was Sharon Public Schools.
Which district had the highest? Not which district, aside from Chelmsford, had the highest.
You mean in general in the Commonwealth?
In the SGP scores of the DART districts.
Does it start with a W?
Oh.
Oh,
Was it Wells? I'm not going to pretend to know.
There.
It's a CH.
Yeah.
57, highest SGP for ELA. 59, second highest GPA, or SGP.
Yeah,
for
Wellesley
math.
was at 62.
It does start with a W. What's their tax rate?
More.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of our SGP.
I'm done. Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
No, it looks great.
Yeah.
Comments, questions?
Keep up the good work.
Keep up the good work, I think, is a good way to say it. The proficiency gap calculation, how's that going to be affected by the switch to Park?
Well, right now, it wouldn't affect us because we haven't switched to Park, but we'd go back to that. Remember that really big word I used, that equal percentile linking? They're planning on when they if they were to switch over to Park, or an MCAS-like, a Park-like test, call it whatever it is, whatever the state votes on, they would then have to make that linking and let us know.
And how would they make that linking?
A lot of math. I don't know how to say it.
I'd like to go through this, because if we were, because this year, something like half of the districts are going to Park. So in that situation, you can do an equal percentile calculation, because you have a bunch of districts that are still doing the MCAS, even though it's completely not properly controlled for. It is not a random draw at all. So it's not really a good comparison, but at least you have half of the cohort remaining behind. what is the state going to do the next year when everybody goes to the park? Where are they going to get that other comparison group to calculate an equal percentile?
It's a great question. I think it's something that we'd end up receiving from the state, but and that's not something I've investigated.
But your question is also based on.
It's more of a rhetorical question. No, whenever we go to whatever,
Okay.
whenever everybody switches over, I don't see how you can calculate an equal percentile ranking.
Right. That's what happens when you give a choice.
No, yeah. What I'm trying to say is that I think this whole scheme is flawed.
Yeah.
One of the things that has come up in some of the meetings I've attended is that they're more hesitant today to discuss implementation of PARC than they were a year ago.
But it's not a question of that. It's simply
No, I know where you're going. I'm just
any
making
standardized test.
I'm just going in that direction because they also, there was a comment made this evening, public comment about computer labs, and in the meetings I'm going to is whether they do PARC or they do MCAST or something else, it's all going to be online, so you will need to have the availability of students to use those computers.
And that's when you talk about that proficiency gap piece, that's only for the composite performance index. That's the only thing that's showing the proficiency gap closure. That's why the growth model makes more sense, because it's applicable to no matter where a student or group of students are.
Yeah.
And it allows you that flexibility of, even if you're making, slow growth, you're still making growth.
Yeah.
There's
Okay.
still that process. And that's what we're always looking for. Everybody should be growing.
Sure.
No matter what stage they're at.
So of our elementary schools, how many went from level 1 to level 2? And, the number, I read an article recently that the number of level 2s, number of ones that went to 2 was pretty high.
I looked around. I looked just in the general area, Westford, Tingsboro, just our bordering towns. They have their level 2 school districts.
Oh, and some of the, the ones at the Newtons and such went down to level 2. So.
Yeah, the fact that the high school's level 1 is really very
that's
impressive.
huge.
Okay, if there's nothing else, we will move along. Next up on the agenda, we have a space reserved for a discussion of the MASC resolutions. The time being approximately 10:08. Do you want to do that tonight, or do you want to?
No, I think that what we can do is, there is a Division 1 meeting next Wednesday, a week from tomorrow, in Wilmington, and we will be discussing as a division all the resolutions, and it's like a clinic and also the updates on the foundation formula that's happening. There's a review committee at the State House, and so I will request the material electronically, and I can get everybody the information based on that meeting. So we should be able to maybe do one or two of them maybe next Tuesday if we have a longer meeting, or we can do them on the 21st, as long as I have some indication. But when you take a look at it, resolution number 6, we did sponsor, along with several other communities, on the unfunded mandates and new testing, because it deals with finances, and so we are on there.
Okay, then we will save that particular treat for another time. Tonight, the next item is field trips. You have 2 in your packet. The first is a CHS band trip.
And the CHS band trip is not only just a band trip, they will be representing Massachusetts in the National Independence Day Parade down in Washington.
Wow.
And this is quite an honor for our folks. Matt Sexauer and his band and his staff have put in for this and have received this honor, and it's quite an honor, and you have the details there. We will miss them during our parade.
We will miss them during our parade.
I move that we approve the band field trip to participate in the 2015 National Independence Day Parade. The trip will last from July 2nd through July 5th, 2015.
Second.
Any discussion?
I just have a quick question on funding. I just saw the cost.
Yeah.
Does the band have a plan?
I
I'm sorry, but
Yeah, no,
I was kind of shocked by the
I'm
by the numbers.
Mr. Sexara always has a plan.
Yeah.
I don't have the specifics of it, but I'd be happy to get that for you.
But it just, we should help with whatever it is, because it's a significant undertaking. It's a great privilege, but
It is significant.
okay. No, just if we could help them by, pumping up whatever it is, that would be great, I think.
I'd be happy to find that out.
I move that we approve.
It's okay.
we're gonna vote.
But that's good discussion, actually, and that is something we should keep on the radar. All right, then, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. The second is a grade 6 orchestra and chorus trip to Canopy Lake.
Yes, where they'll have the education of, I can never pronounce that.
Adjudication.
Adjudication, thank you, of the performance standards from the maths, arts curriculum frameworks. And because it's across the state line, request your vote.
I move that we approve the 6th grade orchestra and chorus field trip. I got to stop here for a minute, because in the write-up it says performance venue to be determined and then to Canopy Lake. I just had a question about that, because everything's to go to Canopy Lake.
Yeah.
And it just affects how I say this, I guess.
Okay.
So I'll propose, okay, we'll start again. Approve the May 29th field trip to the Performance Center and Canopy Lake for the 6th grade orchestra and chorus.
Second.
Any discussion? Do we want to hold it until we know exactly where the performance venue is?
I'm sure it's
or are we-
fine. I just picked that up, that I think they're two different places, that's all.
Okay. In that case, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, next on the agenda is policy. We will also reserve that treat for another evening. Liaison reports.
The only thing I have is to be aware that the IT bond bill RFP should be is either out or should be going out. And it doesn't look like it's going to be simple.
Yeah, Secretary Malone mentioned that while he was here as well.
Right, and the other piece about Secretary Malone, he was the one leading around the high school, no matter what we were doing. He
yes.
wanted to see very specific things, and that was it, and he was gone.
Okay.
So, we didn't get every place we wanted to get, any more than we did at McCarthy. Didn't go to the library at McCarthy either. He only wanted to see the teacher.
Well, he also went into the cafeteria because he liked to talk to the kids, which I think is important.
Right, I don't think we were so much showing off the
Yeah.
food prep as we were the kids.
Yeah, he wanted.
Right. He was
Not-
more interested in dealing with it. But I just want to make that clear, is
I think
that
it's
it was what
important
he
to
had
say.
requested. It wasn't our itinerary.
No.
Would it be okay if I do buy him a school this year? We talked.
Yeah, if you guys
We were both
want to
going to the
flip
high
it,
school, and I
fine.
think-
He
Yeah, I
lives
just wanna
nearby
do
him.
that.
Fine.
Okay.
I think that'd be
Have to
great.
be at the high school
All right.
anyway.
Okay.
They were sorry to see you gone, but
Okay. I have a long list of action items. Some of these are a little bit sticky for various reasons. Some of them maybe could be taken off as well. The first thing is the associate's degree track.
oh yeah.
That's still, I think that's still hanging.
Yeah, I can speak that, and I talked a little bit with Al about it. So there's another grant out there, which is the high school to college grant, and I do have a small working group that we're going to look at the grant to see if that's something that would be applicable for some of our students at Chelmsford High School. So you have to plan it out for 3 years, and it's a competitive grant. There's upwards, I want to say, of $750,000. Now, with that being said, when it comes to a competitive grant, you have to actually tell them what you want. They don't tell you this is what you have and work it out. So I have a meeting on the 14th with Tom Wright, Charlie Caleri, Margaret Blakely, and Heather Galanti, and Stephanie Quinn.
Okay. Are you comfortable then, Al? I'm going to pick on you because it was your original motion. Are we comfortable taking this off the action item list with the understanding that we'll have a more complete report at some point in the future. I mean, we
I think
know
the work that's being done is
Yeah.
on schedule, and
Right.
I don't have any problem.
So we
with it.
don't, okay. I mean, we know Tom Wright will be here for the annual guidance report, not very long anyway, right? Okay, the MIAA response was hanging, working to deadlines once again. I have transmitted the letter to Anne Marie, and of course, she doesn't worry about deadlines, she just does things. So I think that's available online if people are interested in it. The mulch situation, you're still following up with Nick Parley, and at some point
Yes.
we will, obviously other things have come up. The legal review on the staff social media policy,
You
it
did
was,
that.
it was reviewed and okay, and then, but it was supposed to come
Right, but
for the consent agenda, and that's all that's hanging as far as I know.
Right,
I
but
just need a
what was
final copy.
online, I don't have the wording of what was approved. I have to get that so that I have it in my, if it's online, just let me know, because then I'll just download it and copy it and then get you a copy to put in the consent agenda. But had been tweaked, but I didn't have the tweaks. What we voted on isn't what I have in my computer.
Okay, so let's go back, we'll,
You just go back and
let's
send
go
it.
back and check that.
Right.
The 640702 policy also to add the sixth grade. This was as discussed and voted at the meeting. It just needed to be updated. Evelyn does an excellent job of working to deadlines too, as I have a copy of that now, and it will be in the consent agenda for the next meeting. A general note about the preventive maintenance, still, next meeting is scheduled for December 3rd, and I think we can just take that off the to-do list since that's been properly scheduled. There was a request for an agenda item to discuss athletic fees. Are we satisfied with the discussion tonight? Do we still need to have, so it says here, people are looking for a beginning balance, ending balance, and a list of all the fundraisers. Now, we have an auditor's accounting of the individual accounts showing the starting balances and ending balances, I believe, for an 18-month period. I think there's still a question of what exactly the format should look like, and
I would like to believe that every fundraiser that students are engaged in, they've been approved by Mr. Moreau.
it's been approved by Mr. Moreau and Mr. Cleary, right? Wasn't that what
Okay.
that was part of the present, that was part of the presentation tonight. He did touch on the kind of how fundraisers get scheduled and how they get reported. What was asked for at a previous meeting and we don't yet have is kind of a spreadsheet or a summary sheet.
Right.
My concern is these rumors I'm hearing that fundraising is now spreading from students to parents.
I think that's true.
What do you mean?
What I mean
Parents
is-
run the fundraisers.
No.
Oh.
Parent-only fundraisers. There are events that
Oh.
maybe are geared with alcohol involved that parents only can attend, and you give money to attend this event. And
Well, I don't know about that.
Well,
You
that
sure that's
clearly
not part of
can't
the
be
boosters or the-
sanctioned
any
by
of the
Oh, I'm
things
sure
they
it's
do?
not. I'm sure it's not.
Okay.
That kind of stuff, I don't want it to be part of our school,
Well, right. So what you're saying is that if we had a list of all the approved fundraisers,
Right.
if somebody else were doing some kind of unscheduled or unauthorized fundraiser, it would be clear that it was unscheduled and unauthorized.
And where are those funds going? That's my question.
Well, they're going into, again, Scott did say something about that tonight, that explaining that they go into the student athletic fund. We further have this is what we have from the auditors, are breakdowns of each of those individual accounts for an 18-month period. Now, what it doesn't include is the list of every event that generated revenue and every expense that was incurred by each of the funds. So I think that is still probably on the to-do list.
Okay.
It's more difficult to control than
Yeah.
all that. I mean, if the parents set up a meeting, that doesn't mean anybody knows about it
Right.
particularly.
Right.
But what it means is that it's not an official fundraiser. I mean, look,
Oh,
we
but it
can't.
is if they
where's
put it
the
out that
money
they're
going?
raising money for the team.
They
If it's
charge
not,
$15 a head, let's say, to come to this party for parents only.
but wait, you're speculating, and if the money's not going to the athletic fund, then it's not our business, right? I mean, if a group of parents wants to get together and have a party and everybody throws $20 into a hat, that's fine. That's legal. They can do it. What they can't do is take that money and put it into
Hire an assistant coach?
No, we can't do, you
what?
can't
No,
do that.
you cannot do that. Well, how would you hire? No. How would you hire an assistant coach with a pile of money in a hat? It would have to go into the
budget.
into the athletic
Yeah.
account, and to go into that account, it would have to be deposited by the principal. So,
If I could just speak to, if there are specific questions, please email me, and
Right.
I will get you the answers
I think that's.
ASAP. The
Okay.
speculation piece, I don't think helps us. Specifically for the hiring of folks, it comes through an approved list, and that's brought before us, and we approve our coaches. But I'll be tell me who, what, when, where,
Okay.
and I'll get you an answer.
Okay.
I think it
Please.
should be said, this is not common practice.
No.
But
No,
it-
that's what I mean, and I don't
but
want it to become
yeah, I
common
know,
practice.
and
No, it's not common.
It has
I-
happened.
Well, if
I
it's
haven't
any
heard.
It's
practice.
happened.
Okay, tell me who.
The other thing I
I made
asked for,
reference to an
I'll find
issue in the past was a different team than this case. And so it doesn't happen very often, but every once in a while, a group of parents become more aggressive. And it's hard because it's outside of our circle of work.
I guess that would be something that really needs to be looked into.
Sure. Or would have been a good question while the athletic director was here.
I didn't know that.
if he knew about it. Because somebody may just write a check after the fact. But do we still take photographs of the checks?
This sounds like something like a major college football thing where there's free cars for players. Really? This is going on in Chelmsford?
Yeah.
But it's an offshoot from lack of funds,
Right.
okay? It's just,
That's exactly.
If there's
exactly,
under the table payments to coaches, that's
if they can't
that's
afford
not
to hire the
not
coach,
okay.
that's
It's not.
it's not okay, Mike. But it happens. We can shake our heads
Yeah.
and say, no, it doesn't. But it does.
I don't know anything about it happening, and if it's happening, it needs to stop now, and we need evidence.
Okay.
And I just asked for a list of what the camps were and what the sports
Yeah,
were.
that's in the new one.
And what
Our
are-
new action
What
items.
are the rules with respect to fundraising, especially those Lions cards? Are the students told you have to sell X number of cards? Come back with a check for these 20 cards?
All right, we need to have an agenda item on
Yeah,
this,
but
and people will have to submit questions so that we can get answers in a timely manner. I mean, it sounds like there's more questions than I thought there were. Public input session on October 28th. That is done. Debbie has reserved the McCarthy Library. A request for a link to the Mass version of the Next Generation Science Standards. Dr. Hirsch took care of that already in an email. A request for a review of the pod conditions. That's going to be on the...
When Kathleen Canavan comes.
Okay, so that'll be addressed by...
First meeting, I believe, in November. I think we have a tentative
All right.
schedule.
510309 policy.
It was a social media policy. Isn't that the one that we talked
That's
about
the
that I don't
oh,
have the
that's
final
Okay,
final?
the staff one.
That's the staff one.
Okay, so that's a duplicate. An update on the digital version of the yearbook. Are we going digital?
I did ask Mr. Cleary that.
All right, well, you know what, we'll just recycle it. It'll be, again,
I can't recall the
it's
answer to
been a hectic couple of weeks. MASC resolutions for the next
The next
meeting.
meeting and other policies, and we gotta get-
That'll
we
be
have to get-
sticky. From tonight, in addition to in addition to your question about the list of camps, I have a note for line item transfers in August.
Yes.
You had a question about that, so I think I did not fully understand the question.
Right, what I was asking, what I asked them.
About the budget, our budget.
Right.
Just to,
Right, when we were talking about the FY14 budget, I had asked at the time about getting where the money was being transferred from those line items that actually were not 100% spent. Which ones were they that fed into the ones that were overspent? Where did that money come from?
So what you're asking about then is what it sounds like to me, the difference between the originally approved budget and the final accepted budget.
Right.
As reflected in the
Because
monthly
what that will, right, because what
year-to-dates.
that will help in understanding our problem is that if we are overrun, then when you balance out all those line items, you'll come up in the red. You may come up in the red.
You should come up in the red.
That's correct.
That is
And that's what I
correct.
want to know.
Except that our year-to-date didn't show us in the red.
I still want to know how it got transferred so it doesn't show that. Because obviously we have some issues and something happened.
Okay, this is something we're going to have to dig into a little bit more.
You may not get it by the
and
next
I will-
meeting. I just wanted, at some point, I'd
because
like
I
to see
think
it.
because I think part of the answer to that is that some of those expenses must have been moved out of the appropriated budget and paid with the appropriate revolving account.
Then we can see what that
And
is.
so I'm just going to say I would add a review of the expenditures from the revolving accounts to your request.
Right, the
So that
charges to
in addition to looking at just the appropriated budget differences, I think we also need to review the expenses incurred by the revolving accounts, and as long as we're doing that, we need to review the revenues received by the various revolving accounts, so we understand how those changes occurred.
Right, because if we had a shortfall, it should have been noted in July or August that we were having a shortfall of the FY14 budget. It should, because if those are FY14
Right, agreed.
invoices, we should have known at that point. So if we can get a handle on those line items and all of the totals, then we might be able to have more information, clear information about what actually occurred.
Right.
It's a piece.
I mean, yeah, that's right. So this will be a part of a bigger investigation.
That's
into-
correct, but
into
that's
how
where
this-
that's
but
where
it's a
we start, because
specific
that's what.
actionable step, yeah.
Because we were asking the questions, we just didn't get the
Right.
answers.
So I will tell you that the town accountant sent a summary of year-end revolving fund balances, a 10-year history of it, last week, and I asked her for the revenues and expenses for each of those years as well. She promised to follow up on that. She said it would take her a couple of weeks to put all that information together. But yeah, I think that'll give us at least a hint of not only how did last year go, but how did it compare to other previous years. And then maybe looking at that, we can also try to dig down a little bit deeper into exactly what those expenses were, if you want to see where the money went.
Right, but one of the other things that happens too is that you prepay SPED. And the question is how much of excess monies that we had prepaid SPED for the next year from the previous budget. So you got to watch how you're doing.
Again, the information that the town accountant provided does have that information as well, so I'll bring that forward to you guys. But basically it drops off dramatically over the last few years.
Oh, yeah, because we've been so tight with everything.
Right. Thanks, Karen. Yep, Al?
I think we had a decent idea just a second ago. I think at some point, like at the beginning of the financial year, it would be good for the whoever is knowledgeable about finances to tell us for things to look for when we sign the warrants.
I completely agree.
For
We will-
example, it never occurred to me to look for a date.
Right. You know what, I will take that on, that
But
is
you asked me to do the thing on the warrants.
the thing on the warrants, but the specific task of.
I thought that was part of what I was supposed to do.
If you'd like it, you can have it.
It's easy enough to put it in the report, because it would make it comprehensive, wouldn't it, if I'm going to?
Well, what I'm looking for is a
We
handbook.
don't have to spend a lot of time on this now, but I think it would be really helpful, because a number of us in this committee do not come, well, I shouldn't speak for us. I don't come from a strong financial background.
Neither do I. I completely agree with you, and I think that's absolutely one of the things that needs to come out of this, whether we spend a long time with it or it falls to other people to do that.
Right.
I think we have to put something together as quickly as possible.
Who did I write?
Finally, I have that I need to follow up with Ms. Mithil for the dates of Diwali, the holiday dates. Anything else?
No.
We got plenty of time.
Before midnight, is that what you meant?
Oh, before breakfast.
Oh.
All right.
This is unique.
Then that brings us to press questions.
She deserves a medal for staying this long.
Yeah, Molly backs up.
Hollywood didn't even listen to my academic. That's been a marathon. Alana Melanson,
Hi,
Lowell
Lana.
Son. These questions are actually directed to the superintendent. I'm curious why the business manager was not here tonight.
She was not available tonight.
Any particular reason why she didn't come to this particular meeting?
Not that I wish to share.
Okay. You made reference to conducting some sort of investigation as to how the district got into this situation.
Yes.
Could you please elaborate as to what that may entail?
It'll entail looking at our financial records. As you just heard the chair summarize several of the action items. We'll also include working with the town accountant, town treasurer, and going back through our records, looking through POs, requests for payments, our revolving accounts, the ins, the outs, and we'll be able to put that together.
What sort of timeline are you expecting for that?
We are looking to do this as soon as possible. It's, I believe, going to be like an onion. You pull back a layer and you'll have another layer. So that timeline right now is open-ended.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Not one.
All right. If there is nothing else,
Move to adjourn. It's at 10:35.
Second.
any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let's
Thank
talk
you very
about that
much.
motion to adjourn.
All right.